excitement. It's actually 00 series. A serious offense indeed. At this moment, Gu Zhiyong scanned all the new recruits and said solemnly, "Comrades, the firearm is our second life and our most loyal comrade. It is endowed with a mission and glory unique to soldiers. Today, we are here to solemnly hold the firearm ceremony. In a moment, the new recruits whose names are called will come up in class order to receive their rifles. Kai Kunkin, here. Ji Taimei, here." Watching as the recruits from the first and second classes are called up one by one to receive their rifles, everyone in the fourth class feels an intense anxiety, wishing they could fast forward this part with a remote control. Who understands the longing to play with such a big toy? Once the third class finishes receiving their rifles, it's finally the fourth class's turn. Li Jiajing, here. Li Jiajing raises his head and shouts loudly, "Chen Sanqi, Qi Meng, Qin Feng, here." The new recruits from the fourth class line up neatly and jog to the long table. At this moment, a row of veteran squad leaders stands behind the long table. Soon, the veterans will personally hand the rifles to them. "Comrade Qin Feng, here." Qin Feng steps forward, his eyes fixed on Zhao Pengfei. "I now confer to you the Type 03 automatic rifle, serial number 19,479. Zhao Pengfei holds the rifle out in front of Qin Feng and says solemnly, "Receiving this steel gun means you will shoulder the sacred mission entrusted to you by the country and the people. I hope you can protect it as you would your own life. Can you do that?" "Yes." Qin Feng bellows with all his might. "Receive the rifle." Qin Feng takes the cold steel rifle with both hands. In an instant, it feels as if he has been electrified. Every cell in his body is cheering and celebrating. At this moment, he truly feels like he is holding a rifle to defend the homeland. Qin Feng puffs out his chest and shouts hoarsely, "Having received this steel rifle, I will not disgrace my mission. I will remember the trust placed in me, train diligently, and hone my skills to defeat the enemy. I vow to defend the homeland. I vow to defend the homeland." Under Qin Feng's inspiration, every new recruit in the fourth class shouts this phrase after receiving their rifles. The determination and attitude of the new recruits in the fourth class bring a sense of relief to all the veterans, including the company commander. Soon, the new recruits of the fourth class return to their original positions, but the passion in their chests has not dissipated. Because what they have received at this moment is not just a rifle, but a glorious mission and responsibility. It is from this moment that they truly feel like soldiers. As everyone finishes receiving their rifles, Gu Zhiyong also shows a smile. "You all look like you're in good spirits, right? I'm feeling great too. Because every rifle is like a relay baton, passing on the spirit of our military from generation to generation. But one thing, from now until you join your unit, no matter where you go or what you do, the rifle must stay with you, and you must stay with the rifle. This includes eating, using the restroom, and everything else. The rifle must be on you." "Yes." All the new recruits shout loudly, committing this phrase to memory. Gu Zhiyong puts away his smile and becomes very serious. "Now, everyone raise your right hand and recite the rifle oath with me." Snap. All the new recruits solemnly raise their right hands, their eyes fixed intently on Gu Zhiyong in front of them. "I pledge. I pledge." Gu Zhiyong recites it once, and everyone follows suit in the oath. "I want to cherish our weapons and equipment as I cherish life, ensuring their safety. As long as the equipment is there, we are safe." Swearing in, Qin Feng. "Mua mua mua. My little gun, I love you so much. Come to daddy's arms." At noon, the new recruits return to the dormitory right after lunch. They couldn't wait to play with their 03 model rifles, with some even hugging them tightly and showering them with kisses. Qin Feng couldn't help but feel that the analogy of marrying a wife was absolutely fitting. Even if one were to actually marry, it might not be as exciting and exhilarating. Looking at the 03 model in his arms, Qin Feng felt immense joy. He even raised the rifle multiple times, striking poses as if aiming at an empty wall. Of course, everyone's magazines were empty, with the bullets stored by the armorer. In the military, the separation of weapons and ammunition is mostly enforced for safety reasons. Strictly speaking, the rifles in hand could at most be considered as sticks. However, even without the ability to fire, it couldn't dampen their enthusiasm. Just holding it felt incredibly cool. If possible, they even wanted to strike a pose and take a commemorative photo. At that moment, Zhao Pengfei walked in, seeing the affection everyone had for their weapons. He couldn't help but chuckle. "Enjoy it while you can. After 10 days or half a month, let us see who is still smiling." He clapped his hands and called everyone over. "This afternoon, we won't do physical training or make the beds. I'll teach you how to disassemble and maintain your firearms." After that, he had everyone sit on stools and spread a cloth on the ground. Borrowing Qin Feng's rifle, he demonstrated. As he disassembled the gun, he took out professional tools. During use, firearms can accumulate gunpowder in the barrel, or due to environmental factors, some parts may mix with dirt. These issues can not only reduce the lifespan of the firearm but also pose risks during combat, like jamming, failure to fire, or even bursting the barrel. That's why regular maintenance is essential. Zhao Pengfei explained in detail, and everyone listened attentively. Unlike the earlier bed-making session where they were yawning, even Chen Sanchi was particularly focused. Indeed, when it comes to things of interest, people don't feel any aversion. After the explanation, Zhao Pengfei returned the rifle to Qin Feng and instructed everyone to follow the steps he taught for disassembling and maintaining their firearms, reminding them to be careful not to get gun oil on their hands. Otherwise, it will be very troublesome. It's best to wear gloves. Report, class leader. I need to go to the restroom. Go ahead. Just as Chen Sanchi walked out, someone curiously asked, Class leader, why can't we get gun oil on our hands? Gun oil, in the military, is also known as cutting off descendants oil and has certain irritants. Remember, if you get gun oil on your hands, don't rush to the restroom immediately, or else before Zhao Pengfei finishes his words, you might suddenly hear Chen Sanchi screaming like a pig being slaughtered. Chapter 95. Is this going to lead to a divorce? No way. Old Qin, do you want your wife? If you do, just say a word, and I'll find one for you right away. Vice squad leader, if you want, I can even give you my wife. On the playground, the new recruits were panting as they ran 5 kilometers. But unlike the usual light load, everyone had an additional backpack and a gun hanging around their necks. At that moment, Li Jiaxing and others were gasping for breath, desperately begging Qin Feng to help carry their guns. Why did they target Qin Feng? Because he was the vice squad leader, because he was easy to talk to, and also because he managed to run 5 kilometers fully armed without sweating much at all. Faced with everyone's desperate pleas, Qin Feng's eyelids twitched slightly, and he decisively chose to refuse. I already have a wife. How can I take on yours? Besides, friends' guns should not be taken lightly. Qin Feng was a principled and upright young man. Vice squad leader, just do us a favor, pity us a little. The backpack is already heavy enough, and having to carry this thing is really too uncomfortable. Just help me carry it for a while, just for a while. Until we finish this lap, okay? Just as everyone was pleading, a voice suddenly came from behind them. Zhao Pengfei was shouting angrily. What are you doing? Is it so cold that you all huddle together to lay eggs? I told you to run with your legs, not to chat with your mouths. Have you forgotten all about military discipline? Zhao Pengfei marched over, brandishing his gear, scaring everyone into scattering. But some brave ones still complained to the squad leader. Squad leader, next time for the 5-kilometer weight training, can we choose between the backpack and the gun? Yes, running with a gun is too uncomfortable, it's too heavy. Right? And it's easy to bump into things. Hearing their complaints, Zhao Pengfei couldn't help but laugh in anger. When you first got your guns, each of you couldn't wait to stick the gun to your side. It's only been a little over half a month, and the honeymoon phase is over. Are you preparing for a divorce? Have you forgotten your vows? While the gun is with you, you should cherish it as you would your life. The faces of the new recruits in the 4th squad turned bitter. Initially, when they first got their guns, they were indeed reluctant to part with them. But no one expected that from then on, they would truly be bound to their guns. Eating, brushing teeth, sleeping, even going to the restroom, they had to carry them along. The Type 03 automatic rifle weighs only 3.5 kilograms, but its length is 72.5 centimeters. Just imagine, having to carry around a nearly 1 meter long piece of iron for everything you do. It really makes everything inconvenient. Moreover, they had recently learned basic tactical movements, which included lying down, crawling low, and high crawling. This training was already quite exhausting and involved crawling through barbed wire. Ripping clothes and scraping hands became a daily occurrence. Now, having to carry a gun with them made the difficulty increase significantly. It can be said that nowadays, everyone is terrified of firearms, wishing they could quickly divorce their gun wives. But is it really that easy? If you love deeply. Even if the love fades, you absolutely cannot abandon it before your discharge. At 8 p.m., the training ground is brightly lit by searchlights. On the grass, the new recruits of the 4th squad lie flat in a line. Their feet are spread apart, forming a V-shape as they adopt a prone shooting position. A target is set up a few dozen meters in front of them. Currently, everyone is practicing aiming under the guidance of Zhao Pengfei. The new recruits do not have live ammunition for training, so they can only practice aiming at the target. The only 5 rounds of ammunition will only be used during the final assessment. As for the results, they can only leave it to fate. When aiming, it's not just about steady hands and eyes. A calm heart is even more essential. Zhao Pengfei walks back and forth in front of the group with his hands behind his back. If he notices anyone with an incorrect posture or a slightly misaligned firearm, he immediately kicks their legs as a reminder. Initially, everyone thought that running with the gun and tactical crawling was exhausting enough. But now they understand that the prone aiming training is even more challenging. On one hand, once they lie down, they cannot move. They must also maintain a high level of concentration. Their eyes, the sight, and the target must form a straight line. This is a very taxing task, unless one loses focus. On the other hand, there are mosquitoes on the grass at night. Although it is already autumn, some resilient ones still buzz around everyone. Even though they sprayed insect repellent before coming out, with the sweat and evaporation, the effectiveness of the repellent diminishes, giving the mosquitoes an opportunity. They land on hands, noses, and most dangerously, on eyelids. A bite there could cause serious swelling. Get away, get away. Chen Sanchi was truly uncomfortable after being bitten. He raised his hand to swat, but was immediately grabbed by Zhao Pengfei by the collar and lifted up. Chen Sanchi, what are you moving around for? Report. There's a mosquito. A mosquito? Where is it? I don't see it. Zhao Pengfei snorted coldly. Can a mosquito kill you? Will a bite take a chunk of flesh? Chen Sanchi was so reprimanded that he couldn't even reply and could only admit his mistake. Zhao Pengfei said coldly, let me tell you, on the battlefield, don't even mention mosquitoes, even poisonous snakes or wild beasts. Without orders, you absolutely cannot move. Now, because of your movement, our ambush point has been completely exposed, and all 10 members of the team are dead. Hearing this, Chen Sanchi turned pale, and the expressions of the others also darkened. To make you remember this lesson, we will add 30 minutes to the prone aiming practice for everyone. If anyone moves again, we will keep adding time until dawn. Yes, Chen Sanchi lay back down, but his heart was filled with guilt. He genuinely believed that his actions had exposed their position and caused the deaths of everyone. However, no one actually blamed him for it. After over 2 months of getting along, everyone had already figured out the temperament of the squad leader. Zhao Pengfei just wanted to find an excuse to make them practice more. Even without Chen Sanchi's mishap, they would have found some other reason to be punished. In short, as the 3-month training period for the new recruits approached its end, Zhao Pengfei's demands on everyone became increasingly strict. Fortunately, the hardships of the past 2 months were not in vain. Even when facing mosquito attacks, everyone managed to ignore them to the greatest extent possible. The price for this was that after each training session, everyone's eyes would be swollen from mosquito bites. Even Qin Feng could not escape the fate dictated by the mosquitoes. At night, the lights were on in the company office. Gu Xiong was smoking, furrowing his brows as he looked at the training plan in his hands. The more he looked, the more strange his expression became. After a long while, he put down the plan and looked at Bai Yuan in confusion. Wasn't the usual training route along the mountain path? Why was it changed this year? Bai Yuan, sipping tea, casually replied. The operations department said there was a landslide on the original route, and it has been closed, so they changed to a new route. Just like that? Gu Xiong frowned. Is the new route safe? Field training is no small matter, and this new route is actually 25 kilometers longer than before. That means the original plan of 5 days and 4 nights now turns into 6 days and 5 nights. Moreover, he pointed at the list on the plan. Which genius came up with this subject? Isn't this a training subject from the training team? Bai Yuan sighed with a wry smile. Forget it, Lao Gu. We just need to follow the orders from above. We can't always stick to the old ways when training new recruits, can we? Besides, the regiment sent people from the 4th Company to follow us the whole way. Are you still worried about accidents? The 4th Company? Wu Jian's team is leading? Gu Xiong was taken aback and asked with a smile. Not exactly. The 4th Company commander has a lot on his plate recently. However, the one leading the team is someone we all know, so he's a familiar face. Who is it? Gu Xiong's curiosity was piqued. Bai Yuan chuckled. It's Su Tiankai, who lost to Qin Feng in the 3-kilometer run and was later dismissed by the chief of staff. He's now the squad leader of the 1st platoon in the 4th Company. Gu Xiong had a strange expression, unsure of what to say. I feel like having this guy on the team makes it even less reliable. Chapter 96. Soft and comfortable. Thoughtful care. Who's going? I'm definitely not going. Me neither. Li Jiajing, you're the most suitable for this task. The squad deputy has high hopes for you, so go for it. 2 minutes ago, the new recruits from the 4th Squad arrived at the Soldiers Service Center to purchase supplies. However, due to the special nature of some products, they were not on the shelves. So, they pushed Li Jiajing to the counter to ask the supply officer if there was any stock. Why Li Jiajing? Because he was sufficiently sly and had thick skin. As supply officer, hello. The supply officer behind the bar leaned on his chin with one hand. He slightly lifted his eyelids and glanced at the somewhat flustered Li Jiajing, then huffed with annoyance. No cigarettes. Even if I had them, I wouldn't sell them to rookies. Officer, you misunderstood. I'm not buying cigarettes. Then what are you buying? Li Jiajing, feeling guilty, looked around as if he were a thief. He took a deep breath, mentally prepared himself, and then lowered his voice to ask, I just want to know if you have something that can stop bleeding? Stop bleeding? Of course we have that. The officer said, pulling out a box of Band-Aids and slapping it on the table. Seeing the item, Li Jiajing shook his head vigorously. Not this kind. I need something bigger, something that can stop a lot of bleeding. Then be clear. Here, take this. The officer rolled his eyes and then took out 2 rolls of something and placed them on the table. Upon seeing the items, Li Jiajing was at a loss for words. Officer, I'm not talking about gauze. It's that thing that girls use every month when they have their period. Li Jiajing's voice got quieter as he spoke. Clearly, for a man like him, buying such things in a place filled with masculine energy was quite embarrassing. Oh, You mean sanitary pads, right? The officer deliberately raised his voice and stretched the words, causing all the veterans shopping in the convenience store to turn and look. Hearing that this kid wanted to buy sanitary pads, each veteran immediately broke into a mischievous grin. Under the gaze of so many veterans, even Li Jiaxing, no matter how thick-skinned he was, felt a bit overwhelmed. His face turned red, and he clutched the hem of his shirt, fidgeting like a shy girl. He was almost ready to pull out a handkerchief to cover his face and flee. At this moment, he was actually starting to reconsider. But just as he turned around, he saw Qin Feng and others hiding behind the shelves, all giving him encouraging looks as if to say, "You can do it." This made Li Jiaxing grit his teeth and awkwardly nod. "Yes, that's the one. Do you have it for sale?" "Of course, how many do you need?" Seeing Li Jiaxing hold up 2 fingers, the officer frowned. "Just 2 packs? Is that enough? I mean, give me 2 boxes. Wow. The officer was taken aback. While others might buy 10 packs, this kid was asking for 2 boxes. It seemed he wasn't short on money at all. "Wait, why do I feel like you look familiar? Aren't you the one who shouted for everyone to pay the bill last time, spending hundreds to make it seem like millions?" Before long, the new recruits from the 4th Squad returned to their barracks, each carrying various items. The most eye-catching were Li Jiaxing and Qi Meng, as each of them was holding a large box. One box was labeled Sophie Elastic Body, Night Use. The other box read, with Carefree, No Worries even with Heavy Flow. Social Death. Utterly mortified. All the way back, they were like monkeys, surrounded by people pointing and laughing. For men, buying such items at a supermarket was already difficult to bring up. Now they have to flaunt this thing in public. It's simply embarrassing. Hurry up, hurry up. Li Jiaxing and Qi Meng hurriedly quickened their pace, as if they had done something wrong, rushing back to the dormitory. Why did they buy so much food? I only told you to buy a dozen packs. How did you end up with 2 boxes? Zhao Pengfei looked at the 2 large boxes of sanitary pads, his eyes nearly popping out. Li Jiaxing said with a goof face, "Monitor, didn't you say this stuff is useful? If we can buy more, let's just get a lot at once. If we can't use it all, we can use it as toilet paper later." Zhao Pengfei was speechless, thinking to himself, "You really are a genius. Using it as toilet paper? It would take 3 pieces just to wipe. That's way too wasteful." Chen Sanchi curiously asked, "Monitor, what's this stuff for? We don't have any bleeding, so we don't need it, right?" Zhao Pengfei smiled slightly and took out a pack of sanitary pads from the box. "Who said you need to bleed to use this? What is it for?" Facing the puzzled crowd, Zhao Pengfei explained, "A notice has come down that field training will start in the next few days. With a distance of 225 kilometers, just relying on your legs won't cut it. The pads are soft and can be used as insoles, providing some protection. Moreover, they can absorb sweat and eliminate odor, so you won't suffer too much during the training." And most importantly, Zhao Pengfei paused for effect, saying that everyone would find out the purpose in due time. This left the group itching with curiosity, wanting to pry his mouth open to get the rest of the information. People really hate it when someone speaks halfway. Qin Feng actually knew that sanitary pads could be used as insoles because he had done it during military training in high school, and the effect was indeed remarkable. But the suspense left by Zhao Pengfei still made Qin Feng a bit uncertain. Since they bought enough, Zhao Pengfei simply let everyone try putting one in their shoes to experience its benefits firsthand. After all, talking about it is one thing, but nothing beats personal experience. Rip. The crowd tore open the packaging and began to place the pads in their shoes. Soon, everyone felt like they were walking on cotton or standing on clouds. Honestly, it was surprisingly comfortable. Now I understand why the ads always say that this brand cares for you. Instantly, the sweat on their feet disappeared, feeling dry and fresh. This thing is truly amazing. A group of big guys felt like they had discovered a new world and were instantly thrilled. Of course, it wasn't just Class 4. New recruits from various classes were now being led by their monitors to the convenience store to buy sanitary pads. Field training is a crucial part of training for new recruits. It is also an important stage that can stimulate rapid growth and hone their willpower. If a soldier usually has 70% of his ability, after undergoing a field training exercise, he can fully unleash his capabilities. Marching over 200 kilometers for 6 days and 5 nights is comparable to walking from one city to another, and it's no joke. Therefore, before setting off, the new recruits must be fully prepared. Considering this, they purchased plenty of food and drinks at the convenience store, fearing they might go hungry on the way. At this moment, Zhao Pengfei took out a strip of cloth and said to everyone, "Using sanitary napkins as insoles is almost no secret in the army. Whenever there's a training exercise, this is basically the norm. Next, I will teach you some practical marching tips that other teams might not cover." With that, he glanced at Qin Feng, closed the door. Qin Feng shut the door, and a mysterious atmosphere immediately filled the room. Everyone exchanged glances, calculating in their minds. Do we really need to close the door to learn? It seems to be a unique skill. We can't let other teams steal this knowledge. Zhao Pengfei sat on a stool, extended one leg, and began to wrap the cloth tightly around his calf in circles. His movements weren't fast. but it was clear he was wrapping it tightly. Upon seeing what the squad leader deemed a unique skill, everyone was left bewildered. Some even showed signs of disappointment. However, a hint of surprise appeared in Qin Feng's eyes. He knew that this little trick from the squad leader could indeed be very useful for long-distance marching. Squad leader, is that it? Someone awkwardly asked. Isn't it just tying a piece of rag around your leg? What's the big deal? A rag? Zhao Pengfei scoffed, patting his calf. This is the crystallization of our ancestors' wisdom, a valuable experience summarized through countless practices by our forebears. Have you heard of the Battle of Sansua? Most people shook their heads, but Qin Feng nodded. Qin Feng, you tell them. Yes, this battle took place during the KMYC period. Qin Feng had a vivid impression of this battle. In this snow mountain battle, our ancestors relied on their legs for rapid maneuvering. 14 hours to cover 72.5 kilometers. What does that mean? Keep in mind, this wasn't on flat ground. It was running on mountain paths where there were no roads, and it was in the snow. Even today, many military experts regard it as an unrepeatable miracle. This achievement owes much to the use of leg wraps. Although seemingly unremarkable, leg wraps actually serve significant purposes. Moreover, they were essential gear for our early troops, with almost everyone needing to wear them. First, they prevent blood from pooling in the legs after long periods of walking, thus reducing leg fatigue and increasing the marching distance. Second, in case of injuries, they can serve as bandages to help stop bleeding urgently. Lastly, if encountering the enemy on the battlefield, they can also be used as ropes to bind prisoners. It can be seen that the two leg-binding ropes are indeed very useful. After listening to Zhao Pengfei's account, the new recruits suddenly became enlightened, and their smiles grew even brighter. The wisdom crystallized by our ancestors must be reliable. Come on, let us tie them up, everyone. Under the dim moonlight, the camp was quiet. The veteran soldiers on duty had already completed their shift change. In the dormitory building, the new recruits were sleeping in various positions, snoring loudly. After a day of intense training, they fell asleep as soon as their heads hit the pillows. At that moment, a figure suddenly appeared downstairs in the dormitory building. Checking the time on his watch, it was 2 hours, 29 minutes, and 50 seconds past midnight. Gu Xiong took a whistle out of his pocket, put it in his mouth, and began the countdown. The sharp sound pierced the night sky and woke up the entire dormitory building of new recruits. Emergency assembly, emergency assembly, hurry, hurry, hurry. Chapter 97, 3 disciplines and 8 points of attention. The new recruit dormitory building trembled as a series of rapid footsteps echoed. Soon, the new recruits had packed their bags, taken their rifles, and rushed out of the stairwell fully armed. In just 4.5 minutes, everyone had gathered. Stand at attention. At ease. A line to the right. Count off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Reporting to the company commander, all members of the first platoon have assembled. Please give instructions. Gu Xiong nodded at the reporting duty officer, signaling him to return to the ranks. Then, he took 2 steps forward and addressed everyone with a strong voice. At ease. Comrades. Field training is an old tradition in our unit, aimed at honing soldiers' willpower and making the entire team more united and cohesive. He raised one hand, fingers together, making a gesture of 7. If this team originally had a combat effectiveness of 7 points after a field exercise, it would become a team with 10 points of tenacious combat capability. The new recruits stood tall, their eyes shining with determination. Looking at the recruits, who had transformed compared to more than 2 months ago, Gu Xiong felt a sense of satisfaction. Although they had not officially received their ranks, in his eyes, everyone was already deserving of the title of soldier. Gu Xiong shifted his tone and continued, Here. I can clearly tell you that field training is definitely not as simple as many people imagine, just a casual walk. A distance of 225 kilometers is equivalent to walking from one city to another. Moreover, most of the paths we will take are difficult mountain roads and dirt paths. Field training is a considerable challenge for many veterans, and for you new recruits, it will be a significant test. Now I ask you, do you have the confidence to complete this challenge? Yes. The new recruits shouted in response. I can't hear you. Shout louder, like real men. Yes, yes, yes. The new recruits shouted with all their might. Gu Xiong smiled and nodded. But then he became serious again. Clenching his fist, he punched the sky and shouted loudly. I hereby announce that the training camp for the new recruits of the 402nd Regiment for the year 2014, a 6-day and 5-night field exercise, officially begins. Every revolutionary soldier must remember the 3 major disciplines and 8 points of attention. First, all actions must follow commands. Only with coordinated steps can we achieve victory. Second, do not take anything from the masses, the people support and like us. Third, all confiscated items must be returned to the public. We must strive to lighten the burden on the people. We must adhere to the 3 major disciplines and never forget the 8 points of attention. As the barracks of the new recruits gradually recede into the distance, the recruits joyfully sing along. They form two lines and march proudly down the wide asphalt road. At this moment, everyone's mood is as joyful as birds released from their cages. It has been some time since joining the army, not counting the physical examination. Strictly speaking, this is everyone's first official outing. As for why Gu Zhiyong wanted everyone to sing this song, the reason is simple: to remind everyone to always remember the discipline of the troops. Once you wear the uniform, your words and actions represent the image of the army. Whether in the barracks or outside, this must always be kept in mind. There is an interesting anecdote circulating online about this song. If you want to determine whether someone has served in the military, just ask them if they can recite the 3 major disciplines and 8 points of attention. Whether they can recite it or not, it proves they are a fraud. The reason is simple: this is something that can only be sung and cannot be memorized. It's similar to someone asking you where the license plate Lu J is from. If you're not a local, you probably won't know right away. Then, you would start singing through the license plates, Lu A for Jinan, Lu B for Qingdao, Lu C, until you find the answer you want. A refreshing mountain breeze blows, and Qin Feng feels the sweat on his face fluttering. He feels completely relaxed and comfortable. Stuck in the barracks every day, it's rare to have the opportunity to get close to nature. The air in the mountains is simply wonderful. The other members of the 4th Squad share the same sentiment at this moment. For the recruits, this is the wind of freedom. Nothing is more delightful for the mind and body than breaking away from the dull and monotonous barracks to connect with nature. Among the 4th Squad, the most excited is Li Jiaxing. As a child from a wealthy family with plenty of outdoor gear and a passion for camping and farm stays, this so-called training exercise is almost indistinguishable from going out camping in his eyes. The sky is a bed, the ground is a quilt, setting up a tent, and lighting a small stove. Add a fishing rod and shout. The fisherman never goes home empty-handed. Such a life is truly delightful. However, this dreamy thought does not last long. As the sky gradually brightens and the sun slowly peeks out, the recruits, who were once full of enthusiasm and vigor just 2 hours ago, can no longer smile. Each one looks expressionless, as if someone owed them a large sum of money. When the excitement fades, all that remains is the dullness and boredom of marching. Just imagine, on a long-distance bus, many people would sleep through the journey. What does it feel like to walk for several hours without music, a phone, or the option to chat? It must drive a person crazy. Right now, the team is passing through a small town. It's 6 in the morning, and shopkeepers are gradually opening their doors, while workers are riding electric bikes down the street. When a large group of soldiers passes by, some households open their doors. Families stand at the entrance with bowls in hand, eating breakfast and happily watching the training team. Only in this country can civilians feel so relaxed upon seeing soldiers. In any other country, seeing so many soldiers at the doorstep would likely frighten people into not daring to open their doors. Under the gaze of the public, the recruits must maintain a proud demeanor, no matter how tired they are. When no one is watching, they can relax, but not at this moment. When out in the world, one's image is self-given, so they must not tarnish the reputation of their unit. Hurry up, run. Keep up with the pace. Vendors in the town set up their stalls early. Some places have even formed small markets. To avoid blocking traffic and disrupting the lives of locals, the leader decided to speed up the march through this area. The recruits, with their backpacks and rifles, began to run faster. Come on, guys. Here, young man. Take this fried dough stick. Onlookers cheered them on, and some enthusiastic elderly folks directly handed freshly bought breakfast to the recruits. Although they hadn't eaten yet, and were quite hungry, the recruits remembered their military discipline and all declined the offers. After passing through the town, smiles appeared on the faces of the recruits. This was their first experience of being in the spotlight and feeling the affection of the public. It was something they had never experienced before joining the military, all thanks to their identity as soldiers and the honor that their uniforms bestowed upon them. The team continued moving forward, alternating between walking and running. The sun climbed overhead, and the temperature gradually rose. The recruits, already on empty stomachs, had become famished after their long trek, appearing like walking corpses, slow and listless. Look! Suddenly, someone exclaimed excitedly. The recruits immediately turned their heads, and their eyes lit up in the next moment. In the distance, flags were waving in the wind. A larger group was passing along the road ahead of them. One of the recruits noticed that the leading flag bore the words of the training guidance unit. Behind it were the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd recruit companies. In fact, after joining the military, the allocation of recruits to different units is random. Some may be assigned to recruit companies below the regiment level, while this training guidance unit is typically organized by division-level units. In simple terms, it accommodates a larger number of recruits, akin to a bigger recruit company. It is obvious that the team ahead is likely out for field training. The training plans are generally similar, and the timing is also quite alike. If there are nearby troops stationed, encountering other new soldier training teams is not particularly strange. However, looking at the exhausted faces, it seems that this team has already completed their training and is on their way back, rather than just starting out like us. Female soldiers. They have female soldiers. Where are they? Let me take a look. This sparked excitement in the crowd. Everyone's eyes widened as they scanned the team. But the male soldiers in that team are not to be underestimated. Everyone is a man who doesn't understand each other. Any ill-intentioned gaze that strays their way would be met with a fierce glare in return. Watching Li Jiaxing and the others act like they've never seen the world before, Qin Feng felt a bit embarrassed. There were only about 10 female soldiers across from them, and most of them were not particularly attractive. But as the saying goes, after 2 years in the army, even a pig can look like a beauty. It has only been 2 months. If they were really in for 2 years, they would be staring at any passing auntie on the road. The new soldier training squad crossed in front of everyone. Although the female soldiers were no longer in sight, the gazes of the onlookers were still somewhat reluctant to part. Everyone, get your eyes back here. The people have walked away, and you're still staring? Do you want to gouge your eyes out and follow them? Zhao Pengfei, angry, kicked one of them. Look at you all, so pathetic. When you get to the unit, don't say you are my soldiers. It's really embarrassing. Li Jiaxing covered his backside, awkwardly saying, squad leader, everyone has a desire for beauty. And you just look too. Zhao Pengfei glared, showing a fierce demeanor. Did I look? I was just seeing off my comrades. Li Jiaxing replied. Looking at female soldiers can be described so refreshingly by you. No wonder you can be the squad leader. As they passed through the small town and the outskirts, the road started to become more offbeat. The surrounding buildings decreased, while trees and weeds began to increase. Under the blazing sun, Company Commander Ge Jiong glanced back at the sparse team. Knowing that everyone was already starving and their physical condition was starting to falter, he ordered everyone to rest in place and eat something to replenish their energy. During the march, they couldn't start a fire to cook, so everyone could only eat some compressed biscuits and individual rations to regain strength. It is worth mentioning that the individual rations designed in this country are quite good. They not only can self-heat, but the main dish is beef fried rice. Of course, while it's called fried rice, the texture definitely cannot compare to that of freshly cooked meals from restaurants. Qin Feng tore open the packaging and took a bite, feeling that the texture was actually more like sticky rice dumplings. However, the overall taste was quite decent and suitable for local stomachs. The packaging even included a packet of pickled vegetables to complement the meal. There is also a small bag of fruit powder, which can be used as a sweet drink to rinse the mouth after meals. Everyone should remember not to litter after eating. Protecting the environment, although it's not military discipline, is a moral standard that every citizen should follow. Of course, the backpacks of everyone in the 4th class contain more than just compressed biscuits and individual self-heating rations. With the strong support of Li Daxiao, everyone has brought plenty of snacks to replenish their energy, such as energy bars, beef jerky, calcium milk, and so on. Half of the entire backpack is filled with various food items, making it feel like they are going on a spring outing. Is everyone full? Ge Jiong asked loudly as he approached the group. The responses were sparse. Some said they were full, while others claimed that one portion was simply not enough. For many of the larger men, a single individual ration could at most sustain their energy, and it was far from satisfying or delicious. Therefore, everyone was particularly longing for the meals prepared by the cooking team. They missed the lion's head meatballs, the large chicken legs, and the spicy beef strips from the cafeteria. Ignoring those who said they were still hungry, Ge Jiong continued, if you're full, it's time to get moving. After walking all morning, everyone's feet must be tired. Since that is the case, let us practice a bit. With that, he instantly wiped the smile off his face and sharply blew his whistle. Everyone, stand up. The new recruits, hearing that there was still training, looked as miserable as frostbitten eggplants. They were already exhausted from the weighted march. Why did they have to train again? This was the most genuine thought of the majority of the new recruits at that moment. However, Qin Feng understood well that the training was never just about running a bit. It always included a lot of physical training to thoroughly temper the soldier's will. 300 push-ups. I'll call out a number, and you do one. The new recruits quickly spread out, getting into position with their fists on the ground. Luckily, the ground was dirt, so it didn't hurt too much. 1, 2, 3. As Ge Jiong's command sounded, everyone began to do push-ups with all their might. However, unlike the grim faces of others, Qin Feng was in a pretty good mood. The feeling of secretly growing at rocket speed while everyone else was working hard was simply delightful. Qin Feng wanted to make good use of the remaining time to improve a bit more, hoping to outperform a bunch of veterans when he returned to the squad. Meanwhile, a figure was hiding in a large tree a few hundred meters ahead. Report to the squad leader. Those kids just finished replenishing their energy and are being supervised by Ge Jiong to do push-ups, said Su Tiankai, who was smiling as he applied camouflage paint to his face with a wax stick over the radio. Understood. We should also prepare over here to give this group of new recruits a lesson. Squad leader, isn't this a bit too much bullying? Hearing the questioning voice from the radio, Su Tiansai's expression immediately turned cold. We are helping the new recruits adapt quickly to the pace of the unit. Like these flowers that have grown in a greenhouse, if they don't experience the ravages of wind and rain, How can they thrive? Stop talking nonsense. Execute the order. With the communication cut off, Su Tiankai looked at his camouflaged face in the mirror. A cold glint flashed in his eyes, and a smirk appeared at the corner of his mouth. Qin Feng, this time you've really fallen into my hands. When night falls, you'll see what happens. Chapter 99. Let us have some exciting little games. What is going on? We've been exhausted all the way here, and just when we finally reach a resting spot, we have to deal with more nonsense? The new recruits, carrying their gear, stood lifelessly at the bottom of a steep dirt slope that was over 100 meters long and inclined at more than 30 degrees. Not far behind them were the newly set up marching tents. Inside the tents, the sounds of chopping vegetables and meat were incessant. Several large pots bubbled away, and steam continuously rose from the steamer, filling the air with the enticing aroma of braised chicken legs and fragrant buns. In fact, there are resting points during a march, usually determined by distance. There aren't many, usually just 2 or 3. The purpose of a resting point is somewhat similar to ancient military encampments, providing a buffer and rest for soldiers who have been on a long journey. Now, it was clearly mealtime. However, the company commander had brought them here, insisting that they sprint up the slope 10 times before they could eat. Sprinting up the slope, as the name suggests, is a common exercise in the military used to train explosiveness and endurance. But the new recruits had already been on the move all day and were starving. Their legs felt as weak as noodles. How could they possibly have the strength to complete 10 sprints? Commander, can we do fewer? 10 sprints is too much. Can we do it once instead? Commander, can we eat first? We'll have more energy to sprint after eating. The new recruits tried to bargain like they were at a market, but this wasn't a marketplace, and Gu Xiong was not a vendor. He coldly stared at the recruits in front of him and reprimanded them without hesitation. Do you really think the food in the military is that good? If you want to eat, you must complete 10 sprints first. Only after that can you eat. At this moment, the recruits felt deep resentment. They wished they could just rush up and kick the commander. Many of them had already worn their feet and shoulders raw, struggling to walk. To demand 10 sprints at this time was pure torment, wasn't it? In reality, everyone guessed correctly. Gu Xiong was indeed making things difficult for them. Many people say that because living conditions have improved, soldiers in the country have lost their previous fierceness. Therefore, sometimes it is necessary to create difficulties to put the new recruits through hardships. The more unreasonable the demands, the more they can push the limits of the soldiers and help these recruits grow into qualified soldiers faster. If this were wartime and enemies were building their defensive positions on the slope, would you still bargain and ask if you could wait until after eating to charge? I'll count to 3. If no one moves, dinner will be canceled for everyone tonight. The new recruits pressed their cracked lips together and looked despairingly at the 100-meter-long slope. After 10 attempts, would they still be fully armed? Would they even survive? Just as everyone struggled and hesitated about whether to charge, a figure took the lead and dashed forward. It was Qin Feng. After a day of long-distance marching, his feet were sore. But this little distance and effort were nothing compared to when the troops of yesteryear, wearing straw sandals, rushed thousands of miles to support the city. What the predecessors could achieve, we had no reason not to. Qin Feng tightened his grip on the backpack straps and charged up the slope with all his might. Qi Ming, Li Jiaxing, Chen Sanqi, and others followed closely behind him. Seeing someone take the lead, the others no longer hesitated and roared as they charged up the slope. At this moment, thinking was futile. Only obeying orders would lead to food. Once, twice, 3 times. Even Qin Feng slowed down after repeated attempts to charge up the slope, especially when reaching the steep rise at the end of the dirt slope, which had at least a 45-degree incline. Imagine carrying a gun and a heavy backpack after a day's march, and now having to charge up the slope 10 times with the smell of food wafting in the air. It was even worse than singing military songs for 2 hours at the canteen entrance. Brother Feng, I can't do it anymore. I'm really done for. During the 7th attempt, Chen Sanqi lost his balance and fell to his knees in a grand salute. Not just him, but Li Jiaxing and several new recruits from the 4th squad had reached their limits. They were exhausted, truly exhausted. More and more people on the scene were collapsing to the ground, completely drained. Even those still standing were swaying as if a gust of wind could knock them down at any moment. Qin Feng couldn't pay attention to other squads. He was only worried about whether his squad could complete the 10 attempts. He pulled out a backpack strap, secured it around Chen Sanqi, and attached the other end to his own chest. Chen Sanqi, I'll pull you along. Qi Ming, you pull Li Jiaxing. Good. If you're feeling a bit better, help those who are struggling. We just need to get through the last 3 rounds, and then we can eat. Just grit your teeth and push harder. After saying this, Qin Feng dragged the exhausted Chen Sanqi up the slope. Although he was tired himself, as the deputy squad leader, he felt responsible to step up and help everyone through this tough moment. Chen Sanqi, don't you dare lag behind. Put in some effort. I still have a can of soda in my backpack. If we complete the charge, it's yours. As soon as he finished speaking, Chen Sanqi's eyes widened, and he instantly found his strength. Nothing could tempt someone more than the thought of drinking soda after training. The guy scrambled up using both hands and feet, significantly lightening Qin Feng's burden. Seeing this, others in the squad began to follow Qin Feng's lead, helping those who were struggling. In no time, the entire slope was filled with the sight of people helping one another. Zhao Pengfei stood on the dirt slope, his face filled with satisfaction. Qin Feng always manages to take the lead at the most critical moments. Gu Xiong looked at him with deep appreciation. This kid could easily complete the task on his own and then rest on the sidelines. But he chose not to do that. Instead, he set an example for everyone through his actions. Never abandon, never give up. This is the kind of good soldier I, Gu Xiong, have trained. The veteran squad leaders from other classes also witnessed this scene. They felt that Qin Feng not only exuded a magnetic positive energy, but also possessed a natural charisma. It truly is a great fortune for the border defense unit to have such a new recruit. Come on, last push, let us go. On the dirt slope, the veteran squad leaders began shouting to cheer on their new recruits. It was like parents encouraging their little ones during a kindergarten sports day. Encouraged by their leaders, the new recruits rose to the occasion, scrambling forward with all their might, as if they were using every ounce of strength they had. The dawn of victory was right before them. Comrades, charge, charge. However, just as they roared and were about to rush up the slope, they were met with the merciless kicks of their respective squad leaders. The new recruits were knocked down, kicking up clouds of dust as they fell. Even Qin Feng was caught off guard and took a kick from Zhao Pengfei to the chest, rolling down and crashing into Chen Sanqi, sliding down 6 or 7 meters. Shameless, despicable, lacking in martial ethics. Looking at the group of people below covered in dirt, Gu Xiong couldn't help but smile broadly. This final kick was to remind you all not to let the prospect of victory cloud your judgment. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. Now get up, line up properly at the bottom, and prepare for dinner. Every new recruit clenched their fists, their eyes blazing with fire. Compared to eating, they were more eager to rush up and give Gu Xiong a good beating. One so severe that even their own mothers wouldn't recognize him. Is it ready yet? I think it's about time. Hurry up. Damn, why is there still blood on it? Who cares? The next class is already eating. Come on, everyone gets a skewer. Fengge, you have one too. Qin Feng looked at the skewers Chen Sanqi brought over, still dripping with blood, and felt a strong aversion. He waved his hand and decisively rejected it. Dinner was quite plentiful, with dishes, rice, and even a small barbecue. Yes, it was a self-service barbecue, just like camping outdoors. Qin Feng truly admired the cooking veterans for their skills and creativity. They had brought so many skewers, greatly enhancing the soldiers' enjoyment of field training. However, Chen Sanqi and the others were terrible at grilling. They looked like starving ghosts as they rushed to eat the chicken wings and skewers that didn't even seem fully cooked. Eating this would surely lead to some problems later, right? Qin Feng shook his head, still feeling that eating vegetables and steamed buns was the more reliable option. Soon, the pleasant dinner time came to an end. It was already past 9 in the evening. Gu Xiong gathered everyone together and said he was going to organize a little game. As soon as the new recruits heard about the game, they perked up, thinking it would be something like singing performances, passing the handkerchief, or playing musical chairs. However, Gu Xiong shook his head and said those were too childish for adults like them. He then pulled out a stack of white paper and a pencil from behind him. With a grin, he announced, the name of this game is Copying Tombstones. Upon hearing the words Copying Tombstones, the atmosphere fell silent. You could hear a pin drop. A chill ran down the spines of the new recruits. Some even felt the hair on their arms stand up. What kind of game was this? Was this really an idea that carbon-based life forms could come up with? One brave soul managed to muster the courage to jokingly ask, "Report, are you kidding us, Captain?" Hearing this, the others felt a wave of relief wash over them. Right, it must be a joke. The name was just a bit creepy. But the actual game would surely have nothing to do with it. It was like the eagle catches the chick, not that a chick was actually caught, just a game name. Seeing the nervous yet expectant and pleading expressions on everyone's faces, Gu Xiong poured cold water on them. I'm not joking. He waved the white paper in his hand seriously. The name of the game is indeed Copying Tombstones. He pointed in a direction and coldly said, 2 kilometers away. Beyond a grove, there is an abandoned cemetery. What you need to do is copy the contents of a tombstone and return within an hour. After saying this, he distributed the paper and pencils. The new recruits exchanged glances, panic written all over their faces. Even Qin Feng felt his eyelids twitch at the sight of the white paper in his hands. He had heard of this kind of training in the military to build courage, but he never expected it to be so outrageous. Going to a cemetery at night to copy tombstones? Whoever came up with this idea was truly a genius. Gu Xiong didn't give them much time to think. He distributed a flashlight to each squad and sent them on their way. Although the task of copying tombstones sounded absurd, it was indeed a method used in the military to train soldiers' courage. Once you became a soldier, you had already stepped out of civilian life. As a soldier, one needed extraordinary bravery. Only by building up that courage could they face various dangers with composure. As he watched everyone gradually disappear into the woods, Gu Xiong smiled and said, "Actually, the real purpose of this training is not to build courage." The squad leaders exchanged puzzled glances. At this point, Gu Xiong saw no need to keep anything hidden. He straightforwardly laid out the entire plan. Upon hearing that there was a hidden ambush being prepared, the squad leaders were instantly filled with anger. In the past, during training exercises, there have been surprise attack drills, but most of them occurred when the new recruits were asleep at night. The squad leaders would wear masks and pretend to be the enemy to launch a sudden assault. This time, however, personnel from the regiment were brought in, and the leader was Su Tiankai, who had previously caused significant trouble for the new recruits. It seemed that the rookies were in for some serious trouble this time. When it's our own people taking action, there's usually some predictability, but when outsiders come in, it's hard to say what will happen. The forest was pitch black, and visibility was nearly zero. The new recruits grew increasingly anxious, their nerves on edge. They knew this wasn't a game of escape room, but a real wilderness. Even without ghosts, encountering wild wolves or bears could mean the end. Li Jiaxing, are you scared? And no, not at all. Then why the hell are you shaking? Qin Feng turned and shone his flashlight on him. Li Jiaxing was clutching Qin Feng's shirt, trembling uncontrollably, his face as pale as a sheet. Qin Feng was somewhat speechless. He had never believed in supernatural beings. To him, this was just a task, nothing more. Besides, he had already faced death before, so what was there to fear? Li Jiaxing, your courage is smaller than a mouse's. Can't you learn from Qi Ming? Look at him. Before Qin Feng could finish, he was taken aback. Qi Ming was tightly gripping Li Jiaxing's arm, shaking like a leaf. His face, just as pale. Are you two really that scared? I don't want to be, Qi Ming stammered. I've been afraid of horror movies since childhood. Back in middle school, I watched The Grudge at a friend's house and had nightmares for a whole week. I didn't even dare go to the bathroom at night. I feel the same, Li Jiaxing gulped, speaking timidly. My dad always took me to see Lin Jing's zombie movies, and to this day, I still dream of zombies chasing me and the old corpse of the mountain village. Hearing terms like The Grudge, zombies, and old corpse of the mountain village made the already anxious crowd even more fearful. Chen Sanqi, the coward, even clung to a tree, too scared to move forward. It was as if stepping any further would bring them face to face with those unclean things. Fear is a human instinct, and horror films, especially the old corpse of the mountain village series, have indeed haunted many childhoods. Even as soldiers, holding guns, they still couldn't shake off the fears that had lingered for years. The best way to eliminate fear is to confront it directly. That was the purpose of this training exercise. Qin Feng didn't want to waste more time talking. He directly grabbed Chen Sanqi and dragged him forward like a dead weight. The weak beam of the flashlight led the way, and the forest was filled with chaotic sounds of footsteps. Soon, they passed through the thicket, and ahead lay a somewhat open area, revealing patches of overgrown grass and small mounds that had long been abandoned. Don't ask, these mounds are just graves one after another. However, judging from the surrounding overgrown weeds, it's clearly a desolate burial ground. The sound of swallowing saliva echoed continuously. The new recruits felt as if they had nails in their feet, all stopping in their tracks. Cold sweat trickled down their cheeks, and a terrifying, eerie atmosphere spread among the crowd. What everyone didn't know was that among the towering weeds around them, pairs of glowing eyes were already fixated on them like prey. Chapter 101. No becoming spirits allowed after the founding of the nation. Qin Feng, my stomach hurts. Chen Sanqi held his stomach, hunched over like a shrimp, looking quite uncomfortable. In front of a dilapidated tombstone, Qin Feng turned back to look at him, speechless. I told you to eat less at night. How could you stuff your mouth with something not fully cooked? Hurry and go relieve yourself. We won't wait for you if you take too long. No, you must wait for me. I'll be fine soon. After saying this, Chen Sanqi hurriedly ran to the side, clutching his backside. Finding a suitable spot, he squatted down and immediately started to relieve himself. Not far to his right, a concealed veteran held his breath, nearly fainting. He cursed under his breath, then shifted forward quietly, sneaking up behind Chen Sanqi. In the next moment, the veteran struck like lightning, covering his mouth. Chen Sanqi didn't even have time to struggle before being knocked unconscious. Just like that, he was dragged into the weeds. Disheveled. What sound was that? Although the commotion wasn't loud, it caught Qin Feng's attention. He turned back and shone his flashlight around. Everyone was nervously copying the inscriptions on the tombstone, unaware of any anomalies. However, Qin Feng's keen senses picked up on something off, as well as the lurking danger. What's wrong, squad leader? What happened? Li Jiaxing asked stammeringly upon seeing his heightened vigilance. Qin Feng furrowed his brows slightly. Go check on Chen Sanqi. Report back immediately if there's any situation. Huh. What's so interesting about relieving oneself? Li Jiaxing looked confused. But Qin Feng didn't explain. Instead instructing him to go with Qi Ming. He reminded them not to make a sound, no matter what they encountered. Moments later, the two returned in the dark, their faces filled with panic. No, he has gone. Chen Sanchi is missing. Li Jiaxing whispered to Qin Feng in a state of fright. The two reverted to a state of heightened tension and suspicion. Qin Feng scanned the surroundings coldly, lowering his voice. Something is very wrong here. You must immediately notify everyone to stop copying the inscriptions and gather here right away. Huh? Qi Ming quickly asked. Then what about Chen Sanchi? Where did he go? Could it be that he really... At this thought, both Qi Ming and Li Jiaxing shivered, not daring to think further. They feared that if they continued, something truly terrifying would emerge. But Qin Feng didn't have time to explain, just urging them to notify everyone quickly. Looking at the new recruits bustling between the tombstones, copying inscriptions, and glancing around at the dark environment and overgrown weeds, Qin Feng suddenly realized that this assessment might not just be a simple test of courage. There must be something else to it. Soon, all the members of the 4th squad gathered around Qin Feng. When counting heads, he found that there were only 8 left. 2 were missing. What the heck? What is going on? How could we be down by 2? Are we really haunted or something? Haunted my foot, Qin Feng said irritably. This activity isn't about practicing courage. It's a test of our alertness in a special environment. I bet there are plenty of veterans hiding in the grass, and they're just waiting to pick off the stragglers. Grass. Is this really happening? The others suddenly realized they had almost been played for fools. Once they learned that someone was pulling strings behind the scenes, their fear was replaced with anger. Squad leader. Should we retreat? What's the rush? Qin Feng smiled. Don't those veterans want to play? Then let us play along with them. In a bit. You all do this, and that meanwhile, not far away in a thicket, Su Tiankai was using night vision binoculars to carefully observe the recruits' every move. As soon as he spotted someone alone, he would immediately report their exact location via earpiece. Then, a veteran would quietly sneak over, knocking them out and dragging them away without anyone noticing. Qin Feng guessed correctly. The purpose of this training was indeed not to practice courage, but to test the recruits' alertness in unfamiliar environments. Soldiers must remain vigilant at all times and in all places. This was also the reason why the higher-ups approved this training. Of course, Su Tiankai volunteered to participate partly to complete the task excellently and see if he could find a way to get reassigned back to the regiment's headquarters. On the other hand, he was also there to settle scores with Qin Feng. This guy not only caused him to lose his position as a staff officer and be sent to a grassroots unit, but he also made him a laughingstock. This was a great humiliation for his previously smooth military career. Although he admired Qin Feng's courage and spirit in saving others during the fire, matters had to be separated. He needed to regain his dignity. Therefore, Su Tiankai decided to personally handle the situation and make sure this kid understood just how big the gap was between new recruits and veterans. He also needed to show Qin Feng that in the face of true strength, any clever tricks would be useless. But before that, he had to complete the task assigned by his superiors. As for Qin Feng, he would personally deal with him later. Su Tiankai picked up the binoculars again, starting to search the crowd for any solitary figures. Soon, he spotted someone clutching his stomach, preparing to find a secluded spot in the woods. 3 o'clock direction. North side of the woods, there's a fool alone. Take care of it quickly. Understood. Attention all units. Our goal is to capture 30 individuals before the training ends. So let's tighten up. Understood? Ensure the task is completed. The veterans are quite confident in their abilities. Just a little while ago, they silently incapacitated 7 or 8 without being detected by any of the rookies. When people are in a state of high tension and fear, their vigilance tends to decrease. As long as they act quickly and discreetly, they can generally succeed. Dealing with a group of rookies is as simple as child's play, right? At the moment, a veteran dressed in camouflage is chasing a lone rookie to the north side of the woods. The rookies had barbecued for dinner, which they are aware of. There's a rather peculiar rule regarding barbecues in the unit. If you eat it, there's an 80 to 90% chance you'll end up with an upset stomach. This gives them a very favorable condition for their ambush. Hearing some rustling ahead, the veteran stealthily approached like a cat. However, just as he was about to cover the rookie's mouth and knock him out, a figure suddenly sprang out from the side, tackling him to the ground. Not good, it's a trap. The veteran reacted quickly, trying to break free as he was taken down. But in the next moment, a flurry of punches rained down on his face. In terms of sheer fighting capability, this rookie far surpassed most veterans. Coupled with the fact that he was caught off guard and never expected a rookie would dare to ambush a veteran, he was quickly knocked out by a series of strikes. Li Jiaxing quickly put on his pants and rushed over. Seeing a veteran in camouflage lying on the ground with a face covered in paint, he couldn't help but smile widely. The deputy had guessed right. A veteran was indeed ambushed, but this one didn't seem like one of our rookies, did it? That's even better. No burden at all in taking him down. As soon as they spotted someone alone, these guys rushed in. Chen Sanchi must have been taken away like this. What should we do now? First, tie him up and gag him. This is our trophy. Oh right, Hee, let me do the tying. Meanwhile, at the edge of the area, next to a gravestone overgrown with weeds, Qin Feng squatted on the ground with a flashlight in his mouth, focused on copying the inscription from the stone. Suddenly, he heard a faint rustling to his right. Qin Feng quickly put on an overly tense expression and mumbled something under his breath. Please don't be alarmed. It was unintentional, please don't be alarmed. Hiding in the grass, Su Tiankai saw Qin Feng looking terrified and was filled with disdain. They had all come to serve in the military, yet he was still afraid of this? With such a small amount of courage, how could he even earn a commendation? He even doubted whether that kid's heroic deeds were exaggerated. With this thought, Su Tiansai's eyes flickered as he prepared to have some fun and capture this kid alive to vent his frustrations. Su Tiankai crawled low to the ground, hiding among the weeds behind the tombstone. He then pinched his throat and let out a hoarse, mournful sound, hoping to scare Qin Feng into a panic. I died so tragically, so tragically. Young man, you wrote my name wrong. But he didn't see Qin Feng's terrified and flustered expression. Instead, he ended up getting a solid kick to his face from a size 43 foot, stunning Su Tiankai. Before he could react, he saw figures rushing towards him. Died so tragically? Wrote the name wrong? Damn it. Don't you know it's not allowed to become a ghost after the founding of the nation? Hit me. Beat this ghost until even his mother wouldn't recognize him. Qin Feng directed Qi Ming and the others to take action, while occasionally joining in to kick Su Tiankai. The advisor was pinned to the ground, crying out in pain. He never expected that Qin Feng would see through the plan at a glance. He was certain this guy had deliberately chosen a remote spot to lure him in. Stop hitting, stop hitting. I am Su. I am your father. Qin Feng responded with a set of military punches, giving this guy no chance to argue back. Even if the King of Heaven came, he had to take this beating today. How dare he scare people with his antics, and even took 2 of his classmates away. Under the watchful eyes of the vice-class leader, he had to pay the price. Chapter 102, The Unfortunate Su Tiankai, assigned to the cooking team. They should be back soon, right? Instructor Bai Yuan peered out with concern, constantly glancing into the dark woods. Gu Xiong looked at his watch and frowned slightly. Logically, there should be someone coming back by now. Although this was a surprise attack on the new recruits, even if Su Tiankai and his team were capable, they could only take down a dozen or so. At the beginning, the new recruits might not notice, but as the numbers dwindled, it would definitely attract attention. So logically, there should be quite a few people panicking and running back by now. But why has it been so long without any movement? Not even a scream was heard, which was quite unusual. Zhao Pengfei's expression darkened. Those guys, could they have knocked out all the new recruits? How is that possible? Yang Kaifeng, a squad leader nearby, immediately refuted. There are about 100 recruits. They aren't fools. If something went wrong, they would run away, right? Besides, Su Tiankai only brought a dozen or so veterans with him. Look, someone is coming out. Before the squad leader could finish, someone suddenly shouted. Sure enough, in the distance, there were flickering flashlight beams in the woods. Soon, new recruits appeared, some looking gloomy, some excited, and some thrilled. Now, it was a matter of which class had the most or the least recruits left. The squad leaders were about to rush over, but the next second, they all came to a halt. In the crowd approaching, there were 4 or 5 pairs carrying bamboo poles. Each bamboo pole seemed to be tied to a wildly wriggling object, just like tying up a pig. But when they got closer, the veterans were shocked to discover that the objects hanging upside down were actually a group of veterans dressed in camouflage. Moreover, they were all beaten black and blue, with their mouths stuffed with stinky socks, unable to make any sound. What on earth was going on? Bai Yuan scratched his head, completely dumbfounded. However, Gu Xiong quickly assessed the situation and reacted immediately. This was a case of failing to steal a chicken and losing the rice instead. They had been counterattacked. As for why only 4 or 5 were caught, that was naturally because the rest had realized their operation had failed and retreated. Report to the company commander. We encountered a group of strange characters during our mission. These people not only dressed oddly, but also ambushed us. We suspect they might be spies, so we captured them. Qin Feng stepped forward and reported loudly. Hearing this, Su Tiankai, who was now hanging upside down with a bruised face, was furious. You are the spies. Your whole family is spies. With his mouth stuffed with stinky socks, he couldn't even curse, only struggling wildly and making muffled sounds. This, however, caused the squad leaders present who recognized him to laugh uncontrollably. Veterans ambushing new recruits and failing, only to be captured and brought back tied up, was a huge relief and a great source of amusement. Gu Xiong, looking at Su Tiansai's unfortunate state, wanted to laugh but had to hold it in. Qin Feng, you did well, but I need to correct you on one point. These are not spies, but veterans from the 402nd Regiment. They were sent here to test your alertness in special situations. Also, the comrade you have hanging upside down is someone you know well. He is Su from the former regiment's staff and is now the squad leader of the 1st platoon of the 4th company. What? No way. Qin Feng took 2 steps back, his expression exaggerated as if he had no idea about this at all. Hurry, untie them, hurry. Li Jiaxing and others held back their laughter and went to untie the veterans. Su Tiankai stood up with a pig-like face, took out the stinky socks from his mouth, and slammed them on the ground. He even spat several times, clearly disgusted. Qin Feng, you, Su staff? Oh no, Su squad leader, Qin Feng quickly asked with concern. If you had revealed your identity earlier, you wouldn't have had to take a beating, right? Don't do this next time. Aren't you just leading us to make mistakes? Beating veterans is a breach of discipline. Damn, you even had the audacity to play the victim. Su Tiankai exclaimed. I was about to reveal my identity. And then you guys surrounded me and started beating me, stuffing my mouth before I could say anything. Did you give me a chance? Sorry, little Su. I didn't give you a heads up. The soldiers I brought are all fierce and tough. Ordinary people really can't handle them. I'm really sorry for the trouble caused by this oversight. Su Tiankai was already frustrated, and Gu Zhiyong's words were like adding fuel to the fire. He was being mocked both openly and secretly for his incompetence, and others were laughing at his misfortune. Even the veteran non-commissioned officers around him looked at him with a sense of glee. Fine, you think you're tough? He gritted his teeth and pointed at Gu Zhiyong. Then, he approached Qin Feng with an angry finger pointing at him. Qin Feng, if the mountain doesn't move, the water will. We will meet again. Next time, I'll go a bit easier on you. Before Su Tiankai could finish his sentence, Qin Feng immediately interrupted him, nearly driving him to the point of blood pressure. There won't be a next time. We're leaving. Su Tiankai really didn't want to stay any longer and quickly left with the few remaining people. As soon as they left, the new recruits from the 4th squad rushed up and threw Qin Feng high into the air. Long live the squad leader. The squad leader is awesome. The other new recruits surrounded them, laughing and cheering loudly. If it weren't for Qin Feng discovering the trick, who knows how many people would have suffered. Watching Qin Feng being thrown up repeatedly, Zhao Pengfei stood with his hands on his hips, a smile on his face. He turned to look in the direction Su Tiankai had left, revealing a disdainful smile. So what if you're an officer? What if you've been a staff officer? You're still being suppressed by my troops. Su Tiankai, how did you even think of that? In the late night, in the office of the 4th Squad's headquarters, Squad leader Wu Jian, who had just crawled out of bed, slammed the table loudly. He pointed angrily at Su Tiankai, the newly appointed squad leader who had just reported in. You've already tripped once under his hand. Why haven't you learned your lesson? Didn't I tell you not to mess with Qin Feng? You wouldn't listen, would you? That kid is not like the other new recruits. If you fight him, you're only going to suffer. Su Tiansai's face was battered and bruised, and he hung his head to explain. Squad leader, no matter how capable Qin Feng is, he is still just a new recruit. I just wanted to save face. I didn't expect what? Wu Jian was so angry he almost laughed. You didn't expect him to not only see through the plan, but also boldly take action against you? He stepped closer and poked Su Tiankai hard on the shoulder. Su Tiankai, your head and your name don't match at all. Do you think someone who dares to confront the commander at a commendation meeting is just some minor character? This kid, whether in courage, means, or intelligence, is not someone a random person can easily handle. When you're given a task, just stick to picking some soft targets. Why did you have to go for the tough ones? Are you just looking for trouble? Su Tiankai was left speechless, feeling bitter. He hadn't anticipated that Qin Feng would suddenly counterattack in such a situation. This was completely beyond what a new recruit of just over 2 months should be capable of. I think you should just give up being the squad leader. Hearing Wu Jian's words, Su Tiansai's eyes were filled with astonishment. Squad leader, you wouldn't really consider demoting me over such a minor mistake, would you? After all, I'm a captain. Being assigned to be a squad leader would be quite a blow to my dignity. The non-commissioned officers will definitely laugh at me. You still want to be a squad leader? Wu Jian is nearly driven to high blood pressure by this. If I let you be a squad leader, I fear it would ruin the soldiers under my command. If it weren't for the chief of staff forcing people into the 4th company, he wouldn't want you at all. In the military, pride and complacency are the worst vices, especially for someone with high aspirations but low abilities. And Su Tiankai is exactly that kind of person. He has had a smooth journey since childhood and has never faced setbacks. After graduating from military school, he was directly assigned to a staff position, and within 2 years, he was promoted to an advisor. He has always looked down on the non-commissioned officers and new recruits in the grassroots units. Now that he has been demoted to a grassroots unit, he still hasn't changed this arrogant habit. Squad leader, where are you planning to send me? You wouldn't want me to be an instructor, would you? An instructor? Dream on. Wu Jian angrily pointed at him. Starting tomorrow, you will help out in the cooking team. The cooking team? Su Tiansai's jaw nearly dropped to the ground. Coming to the 4th company as a platoon leader was already humiliating enough. How could he be reduced to cooking? Su Tiankai still wanted to argue, but Wu Jian didn't give him any chance and directly kicked him out. Sitting in his chair, Wu Jian lit a cigarette to calm down his anger. A dozen veterans staged a surprise attack and still managed to capture 4 or 5. I can't believe this. This year's batch of new recruits is truly extraordinary. In the following days, the new recruits spent their time trekking through mountains and rivers. During the march, in addition to physical training, they also engaged in many outdoor survival exercises. The recruits' skin became increasingly tanned, and they lost a significant amount of weight compared to a few days ago. Yet, their eyes carried a sharpness that was previously absent. At night, after tending to their blisters, the recruits leaned against their backpacks. They fell into a deep sleep beside the stones and trees by the roadside, cradling their rifles. The sky served as a blanket and the ground as a bed. This was the most authentic portrayal of all the soldiers at this moment. Despite the harsh conditions, everyone still slept soundly. What they didn't know was that, to the southwest, over 20 kilometers away, a sudden gunshot shattered the night's tranquility. As it startled flocks of birds into the air, it also stained the earth a deep red. Chapter 103. Unsung Heroes, Unmarked Monuments with Great Pride and Spirit. The marching team advanced majestically, like a long dragon. Qin Feng walked at the front of the line, holding the new recruits' banner, fluttering in the bright morning light. In recent days, each squad had sent a representative to the front to carry the flag. For soldiers, this is a very honorable task. Just after 9 in the morning, everyone arrived at a massive white archway. The top of the arch was adorned with orange-yellow glazed tiles, and beneath it were the 6 big characters, Southern Border Martyrs Cemetery. This was the destination of their march. Gu Xiong regrouped the team at the entrance of the cemetery and solemnly addressed the new recruits. The monument stands tall amidst the sandy stones, and the green mountains comfort the loyal souls. Comrades, this is the destination of our training exercise, and also the resting place of our predecessors. Now, I will assign a task. Take out your towels and water bottles to wipe the martyrs' tombstones. The new recruits adjusted their uniforms and walked into the martyrs' cemetery with heavy hearts. As if afraid of disturbing the souls of the martyrs, everyone's footsteps became noticeably lighter. Ahead, there stood a prominent hero monument, resembling a long sword piercing the sky. Inscribed on the monument in golden letters were the powerful words, "The revolutionary martyrs will live forever." On both sides of the path stood rows of tombstones, each gray-white, with a bright 5-pointed star on top. Qin Feng crouched in front of one tombstone, wetting his towel with water and gently wiping the dusty surface. The inscription told the story of the hero's name and life. Zhao Sanjiang, 196-341-9844. Gloriously sacrificed in the battle at El Mountain, posthumously awarded first-class merit, and granted the title of Iron Warrior. Although there was no photo on the tombstone, Qin Feng could imagine the honorable appearance of this comrade. At 18 or 19 years old, with a youthful face filled with valor and bravery, he rushed to the battlefield with dreams and passion. But in the end, he lay to rest beneath these green mountains. Qin Feng felt the weight of this moment settle in his heart. Once a young man, bravely guarding the country, blood spilled on the battlefield, returning as an eternal spirit. If it weren't for the selflessness of our predecessors, how could we have the peaceful days we enjoy now? Qin Feng meticulously wiped away all the dust with his towel, then stood up and bowed deeply. "Deputy, come quick." Qin Feng turned to see Qin Sanchi calling him. He walked over quickly but suddenly froze. An indescribable emotion welled up in his heart. In front of Qin Sanchi stood a tombstone adorned with a bouquet of fresh flowers and several laminated photos. All these photos showcased the latest warships and aircraft independently developed by our nation. Someone was using the current prosperous era to comfort the spirits of the predecessors above. With complex feelings, Qin Feng and Qin Sanchi wiped the tombstone clean together and bowed deeply. In the cemetery, others were also diligently cleaning the tombstones, learning about the lives of one martyr after another from the inscriptions. The atmosphere was heavy, with sorrow etched on everyone's faces. There were many heroes here, their lives frozen in the vibrant ages of 18 or 19. The youngest was even just 15. This should have been the most carefree time of life. Yet they took up arms and resolutely stepped onto the battlefield for their country. At that moment, Qin Feng suddenly noticed a row of tombstones on the left that appeared somewhat lonely. However, unlike the previous ones, these tombstones bore only a red heart and the words "Revolutionary Martyrs." War is cruel. When a battle ends, many soldiers are left unrecognizable, with even their bones unable to remain. The battlefield situation changes rapidly. Some people go missing and cannot find their units, while others are temporarily assigned to different teams. And some even sacrifice themselves on the battlefield without having a chance to register. After their sacrifice, these individuals become unknown martyrs. Looking at these gravestones that lack names, Qin Feng's nose began to feel a bit sour. These grayish-white, cold stone tablets once represented individuals with flesh and blood. They were beloved children, had loving partners and children they cared about, and had their own ideals and aspirations. Yet in the end, they left behind not even a name. "Come, let's clean them up," Zhao Pengfei said as he walked up from behind, squatting down to seriously wipe the gravestones with a towel. Qin Feng, with red eyes, followed suit and began to wipe carefully. This was the only thing they could do. Squad leader, what's wrong? Do you think one day we might suddenly become martyrs? Zhao Pengfei paused his movements, raised his head, and smiled at Qin Feng. Loyal bones are buried everywhere in the Green Hills. A soldier's final resting place is the battlefield. Although we are in a time of peace now, no one can guarantee that war won't suddenly descend one day. When the country is in danger and the people are threatened, I would gladly follow in the footsteps of my predecessors and become a martyr. Squad leader, if one day we really go to battle, I will definitely shield you from bullets. Ha ha ha, it's a deal then. My back will be entrusted to you. Seeing Qin Feng's serious expression, Zhao Pengfei felt a sense of comfort and smiled. An hour later, all the gravestones in the martyr cemetery were clean spotless. Unlike their earlier visit to the mass grave for courage training, being in the cemetery gave every new recruit a sense of peace. Even if they were to sleep here, no one would feel uncomfortable. However, just as Gu Xiong was assembling the team to prepare to leave, an elderly figure in an old-fashioned green military uniform suddenly appeared on the steps in front of the monument. Through the introduction from the company commander, everyone learned that this elderly man was the bugler from the battlefield years ago. The entire company had perished, and he alone survived, having been trapped under the bodies of his comrades. Since his family was no longer around, he voluntarily applied to come to this cemetery to serve as a gatekeeper. The elderly man's right sleeve was empty, fluttering in the wind as it blew by. In his left hand, he held a rusty bugle, the handle of which was tied with a bright red cloth. Taking a deep breath, he placed the bugle to his lips, pointing the end skyward, and then blew forcefully. Toot, toot, toot. Qin Feng's pupils contracted sharply, and goosebumps instantly covered his body. All the new recruits seemed to awaken their bloodlines, their hair standing on end. The sound of the bugle was all too familiar. It was the charge call. In an instant, everyone felt as if they were back on the battlefield filled with smoke and fire. Young faces, bloodied and determined, rushed past them, charging toward the enemy positions with unwavering resolve. Old comrades, wake up. The younger generation has come to see you. As the sound of the horn faded, the old man shouted hoarsely. It seemed as if rows of tombstones had come to life. The stars on the monuments sparkled with a red glow under the sunlight. As if responding, salute to the martyrs. Salute. With a stirring shout from Gu Xiong, all the new recruits raised their arms as if wielding swords, puffing out their chests. They saluted solemnly towards the cemetery, paying their highest respects. As they left the martyrs' cemetery, everyone felt as if a heavy stone was pressing on their hearts. If they had not worn this military uniform, they might never have deeply understood the sacrifices made by their predecessors. Behind every victory lies the vibrant lives of many. The current peace and stability of the nation has been earned through the blood of countless individuals. Always remain vigilant and aware of dangers. As soldiers, they must stay alert at all times. Looking at the somber and serious ranks, Gu Xiong understood that he didn't need to say much at that moment. After a visit to the martyrs' cemetery, everyone had their own reflections and insights. But the journey back was still long, and it wouldn't do to remain so serious and heavy-hearted. He glanced at the instructor, Bai Yuan, who immediately understood and clapped his hands, saying loudly, "Come on, let us sing a song to lift the spirits." "I'll start." Bai Yuan cleared his throat and sang loudly. "In the vast sea of people, which one am I? In the surging waves, which flower am I? In the ranks guarding the national flag, it's me who fights selflessly. In the great river of glorious achievements, it's me who always surges forward. You don't need to know me, you don't need to recognize me. I blend my youth into the mountains and rivers of my motherland." The bright song flowed through the green mountains and clear waters. The song the motherland will not forget brought everyone a profound emotional experience at that moment. Some sang with teary eyes, while others shed tears. But one thing remained unchanged: their passionate hearts and their resolve to serve the country. 2 hours later, the pace of the march began to slow down. Seeing the checkpoint set up ahead, the new recruits started to discuss among themselves. "What is going on? I don't know. There was no checkpoint on the way here." "You fool, we didn't take this route when we came." Qin Feng did not join in, as he noticed that the armed police ahead were on high alert, checking every vehicle that passed by. This made him frown, and he suddenly felt a bit uneasy. Chapter 104. Discovering hidden NPCs during the march. "Hello, comrade. Please show your identification." At the checkpoint, a squad leader of the armed police saluted Gu Xiong. Gu Xiong quickly took out his identification and handed it over. After a careful examination and confirming everything was in order, the squad leader returned the identification to him. "No problem, you can pass." As Gu Xiong received his identification, he waved to the others behind him and curiously asked, "Comrade, what is the situation here? Why is there suddenly a state of emergency?" Seeing that they were fellow soldiers, the squad leader did not hide the truth. Last night, a group of armed drug traffickers crossed the border, killing one border guard and injuring 2 others. The higher-ups have ordered a thorough search of the area and demanded that all criminals be eliminated within 72 hours. If you encounter any suspicious individuals on the road, please report to us immediately. This is crucial. Gu Xiong nodded vigorously and then left with the team. On the way, several squad leaders gathered around Gu Xiong to inquire about the situation. The company commander did not hide anything regarding the matter and urged everyone to remain vigilant. The area is mountainous and heavily wooded, making it difficult to spot even a small number of people, let alone an entire army. The southwest region is not to be taken lightly. Therefore, Gu Xiong emphasized the need for everyone to stay alert during the journey. If anyone sees any suspicious persons nearby, it must be reported immediately. This sparked a lively discussion among the marching troops. The new recruits were privately speculating that this could be their chance to earn military merit. They joked that if they managed to catch any of the criminals, it would be a collective achievement. The prospect of earning merit excited everyone, especially since Qin Feng had recently been recognized for his contributions, making others envious. Qin Feng walked quietly in the ranks, listening but not participating. It wasn't that he had already received a first-class merit and was uninterested in others' achievements, nor was he aloof or unwilling to fit in. Rather, he understood that such honors were not easily won. While this region was a no-go zone for mercenaries and criminals, capturing them would still require significant effort and time. Unlike rescue missions, this type of merit requires direct confrontation with the enemy. Though it was unclear what motivated this group of drug traffickers to take such risks, their actions against border personnel indicated they were desperate individuals. These criminals were not like the veterans who conducted surprise attacks. They were armed and likely had loaded weapons. Currently, in the entire new recruit company, there were hundreds of guns, but no ammunition. On the battlefield, a gun that cannot fire is less useful than a fire stick. Thus, if they were to encounter these criminals directly, for the new recruits, fleeing would be the best option. Finding a safe place to call for support would be the wise course of action. As for many depictions in films and novels, where one hero single-handedly wipes out an entire drug trafficking organization, those are merely for entertainment. In reality, they would likely be taken out before they even had a chance to react. The enemy is never foolish, and individual heroism is definitely not the way to go. In real combat, teamwork is key to victory. Therefore, if they were to run into those desperate criminals, the priority should be survival and avoiding trouble for the unit. Brother Feng, if I manage to capture those bad guys, what level of merit do you think I could earn? How many do you want? Just say it. Looking at Chen Sanchi's innocent face, Qin Feng gave a serious answer. Sometimes, it's best not to dampen everyone's enthusiasm. After all, having ideals is a good thing. At 2 in the afternoon, the sun hung high overhead. Although it was already November, the midday temperature still made people feel parched. The new recruits, carrying their backpacks and slinging their rifles, trudged along the dusty mountain path like old workhorses in the fields. Squad leader, do you still have water in your canteen? Qin Feng glanced back at Li Jiaxing, whose lips were cracked and dry, and shook his canteen. The water he had refilled when leaving the martyr cemetery was nearly running out. But without a second thought, he handed the canteen to him. He wasn't particularly thirsty at the moment, so he let the others drink first. Li Jiaxing took it without hesitation, tilted his head back, and poured some into his mouth to moisten his dry throat. He then passed the last small sip to Qi Meng behind him, giving him a chance to soothe his throat as well. However, it was clear that such a small amount of water wouldn't quench their thirst. The long trek made them sweat continuously, requiring timely replenishment of a large amount of water. But there seemed to be no place nearby to refill their water supply. So even though they were thirsty, they could only tough it out. Just then, a sudden roar of an engine came from behind. A small van spewing black smoke rushed past them, kicking up a cloud of dust. Cough, cough, cough. Many new recruits were choked, coughing repeatedly. Qin Feng quickly covered his mouth and nose with his arm. After the vehicle passed, he fanned away the dust in front of him. What kind of person is that? Driving so fast, in a hurry to reincarnate. The new recruits cursed, but the van didn't drive far. It stopped about 50 meters ahead. A little old man wearing a straw hat and military training clothes got out of the vehicle, with a cigarette in his mouth. He skillfully opened the back door and carried out 2 heavy foam boxes, placing them on the ground. Seeing this scene, the new recruit's eyes widened in confusion, not knowing what this local was up to. But Qin Feng was amused. Looks like we've encountered a hidden NPC. Legend has it that in the military, there exists a group of mysterious non-staff personnel. They are all-knowing, all-seeing, and always present. Indeed, they are known as the strongest logistics support, the strong army transport. Some say that even if you put on camouflage and disguise yourself well, they can silently approach you and ask, "Want to buy a pack of Huangalu at 30? Order 2 portions of fried rice noodles, and we'll give you a coordinate for the Blue Army Sniper. Buy 10 meat buns and 20 bottles of drinks. And the local will personally take you to the Blue Army Command. Not buying. If you don't, I'll sell to the other side, and then lead them to your Red Army Command." Although these are all jokes online, the reality isn't far off. The locals driving the strong army transport are often seen at various exercise fields. They know the location of every stone and every blade of grass by heart. Wherever there are soldiers gathered, you can always see the strong presence of local folks. Boss, give me a bottle of water. A can of cola, please. Is there anything to eat? 2 burgers, please. The small van was surrounded by people, looking just like a school snack bar during recess. The vendor was grinning from ear to ear, and the new recruits were thrilled to be able to buy food in the wilderness. It was a win-win situation, making everyone happy. Li Jiaxing ran back to his squad with half a box of cola, confidently distributing soda to everyone. He even handed 2 bottles to Qin Feng all at once. This is what you call a small favor returned with 2 bottles of soda. Qin Feng suddenly felt that having Li Jiaxing in the squad was really great. Whenever it came to spending money, he was always the first to step up. At that moment, Chun Sanqi and Qi Ming were also generously praising him, making him feel incredibly accomplished. This could also be seen as mutual benefit and support. Meanwhile, Gu Xiong was relaxing with a bottle of mineral water when suddenly his phone rang. After listening for a while, his expression changed immediately. Yes, we are in this area. Yes, rest assured, we will complete the mission. After hanging up, Gu Xiong immediately blew his whistle forcefully. All personnel, assemble. Chapter 105, Speechless. Is this how you conduct a rescue? The general situation was as follows. At the foot of the mountain, 2 police officers explained everything. Gu Xiong nodded, and then called all the new recruits over to issue orders. Currently, 16 university students were missing while climbing the mountain, and the higher-ups required us to cooperate with the police and firefighters to assist in the search and rescue. Later, everyone put down your guns and backpacks. Take some basic first aid supplies and water, and get ready to follow me up the mountain for the search and rescue. After speaking, he handed the high-frequency radio he received from the police to each squad leader. The plan was to set up a large net at the foot of the mountain, conducting a thorough search from the bottom up. The new recruits left their backpacks with the instructor for safekeeping. Carrying some simple first aid gear, they started their ascent. This area was filled with continuous mountains and untouched primitive jungles. Considering that these students were from prestigious universities in Donghai City, the local authorities attached great importance to the rescue efforts. Not only did they dispatch a large number of police and firefighters into the mountains for search and rescue, but they also sought assistance from the military. Coincidentally, the new recruits were on a training exercise nearby, so the higher-ups assigned this task to Gu Xiong. As the saying goes, the military and police are one family, and since it involved rescuing civilians, everyone felt it was their duty. Squad Vice, I don't quite understand. This isn't a scenic area, and there are no paths up the mountain. Why would they come all this way to climb? On the way up the mountain, Chun Sanqi tugged at Qin Feng's sleeve, asking with some confusion. But before Qin Feng could respond, Li Jiaxing rolled his eyes and said, such a simple question. Why ask? They're just bored, I guess. Many people express strong agreement with this. Indeed, there are many who, with nothing better to do, seek thrills. Rather than visiting the numerous safe tourist attractions, they venture into undeveloped mountains for excitement. If they were trained professionals, it might be acceptable. But a group of clueless university students coming here is simply reckless. In such a primitive jungle that even locals hesitate to enter, encountering wild wolves, wild boars, or bears is not surprising. Moreover, the mountain paths are slippery and steep, and any small misstep could lead to a fall. Enough of this discussion. Zhao Pengfei turned back to stop everyone's chatter. As a soldier, his duty is to protect the safety of the citizens. Issues like this will ultimately be handled by their school. It's not their place to comment. The path up the mountain was extremely difficult, with thick vegetation blocking the way nearly every 2 steps. Being an uninhabited area, the plant life on the mountain was in a state of wild growth. Even ordinary weeds could grow 2 or 3 times taller than in other places. This significantly increased the difficulty of mountain rescue operations. Therefore, Zhao Pengfei found a sturdy stick and tied it to a dagger to create a makeshift machete. He and Qin Feng took the lead, clearing the path. This way, those behind could follow smoothly. Boom! A sudden thunderclap echoed in the clear sky. Gu Xiong looked at the darkening sky and the clouds gathering overhead, frowning. Not good. The weather can change suddenly. We need to hurry up the mountain. If it rains, the path will become difficult. Hearing this, everyone nodded and quickened their pace. However, many stones were covered in moss, and one could easily slip if not careful. Plus, since everyone was unfamiliar with the terrain, even if they wanted to hurry, they couldn't go much faster. As time passed, the sun gradually set. When the last rays of the sunset were completely swallowed by darkness, the long-anticipated heavy rain finally fell. Large raindrops fell continuously like a curtain, hitting branches and leaves with a crackling sound. The new recruits had put on raincoats, but in such conditions, they were practically useless. Water poured down their collars, soaking everyone to the bone. Yet, despite this, everyone continued to push forward, heads down. Pass the message along. Stay close, don't fall behind. Zhao Pengfei wiped the rain off his face and called back to Qin Feng. Qin Feng immediately turned around and shouted to Li Jiaxing behind him. Pass the message along. Stay close. Don't fall behind. What? What did you say? The heavy rain blurred vision and diminished hearing. Li Jiaxing slapped his ears to try to get the water out, but he lost his footing and suddenly lost his balance. Just as he was about to fall, Qin Feng reacted quickly and grabbed his arm, pulling him back up. Are you all right? It's fine, it's fine. You scared me to death. Pass the command. Stay close. Don't fall behind. Qin Feng shouted loudly into his ear. Oh, I got it. Li Jiaxing, who had regained his balance, quickly relayed the command backward. The new recruits of the 4th Squad relied on the faint light of a flashlight, struggling to navigate the slippery mountain path under the heavy rain. New recruits approaching from different directions were facing the same situation. The obscured vision, treacherous roads, and dense underbrush became the biggest obstacles for the search and rescue mission. Nevertheless, no one complained, for once they donned the military uniform, they had to shoulder such responsibilities. Meanwhile, at the top of the mountain, large patches of pine trees swayed violently in the howling wind. In a clearing below, 2 small brown tents shook incessantly under the pounding of the rain and wind, as if they could be torn apart at any moment by the elements. Inside the tents, a group of young men and women pressed their bodies against the fabric, their faces filled with fear and anxiety. It's all your fault, Yu Feihong. A girl suddenly cried out. Why did you insist on organizing this outdoor hike? Now look, we're all stuck in this godforsaken place. If a bear shows up, we're done for. The boy named Yu Feihong was not only the vice president of the student council, but also the initiator of this adventure. Gu Xiaolu, what do you mean by that? If you hadn't dropped the GPS in the river and broken it, would we be lost? And wasn't it you and Zhao Weiwei who suggested organizing this hike in the first place? I only initiated it because of you. It's your fault. The GPS is so important. Why did you give it to Xiaolu? We girls don't know how to use it. Exactly, Yu Feihong. This is your responsibility. Don't try to shirk it. Lu Xiang, what does this have to do with you? You weren't even on the list. You insisted on tagging along. Just as everyone was bickering and arguing, a loud crash suddenly echoed from above the tent. The camping light hanging from the top, which already had little battery left, went out completely. Instantly, the tent was plunged into darkness, and several timid girls screamed and began to cry in fear. At that moment, Qin Feng, who had been searching along the mountain path, keenly sensed something unusual in the torrential rain. He immediately pointed in a direction and shouted to Zhao Pengfei, squad leader. Over there. It seems like there's some movement. Let us go check it out. Zhao Pengfei didn't hesitate to swing aside the brush in front of him and led the team toward the patch of pine trees on the summit. The few hundred meters took everyone nearly 10 minutes to crawl through. Once they reached the top, the 4th Squad indeed found 2 small tents trembling not far away. Zhao Pengfei felt a surge of excitement and quickly led the team to check the situation. Sure enough, they discovered some missing college students inside the tents. After inquiring about the situation, it was learned that they had diverged while searching for an escape route. Consequently, the 18 individuals split into 3 groups, exploring different directions. Regardless, finding people is a significant achievement. Zhao Pengfei immediately reported this situation to Gu Zhiyong using a high-frequency walkie-talkie, emphasizing that it was Qin Feng who discovered the commotion on the way up the mountain, allowing everyone to find their way. A smile appeared on Gu Zhiyong's face. As the other 2 groups had already been located by the police and firefighters, Zhao Pengfei found the last group, which was a noteworthy accomplishment. However, due to the severe storm, it was impossible to reach the summit. You all stay put and do not move. Wait for the wind and rain to lessen. Specialized rescue personnel will arrive to ensure everyone's safe evacuation. The rain was falling harder, almost viscous in nature. Whether going up or down the mountain was extremely dangerous. A slight misstep could lead to slipping or even fatal falls. Therefore, for safety's sake, Gu Zhiyong could only lead the others back down the mountain, leaving Zhao Pengfei and the others to accompany the university students, waiting quietly for rescue at the summit. However, this seemingly safest plan instantly caused the educated university students to become agitated. What are you doing? Can't you see we've been trapped for so long? Why aren't you escorting us down immediately? What are we waiting for? It's not that we can't take you down, but the rain is too heavy. Descending recklessly is too dangerous. I don't want to hear your excuses. If there's danger, that's your problem. We need to leave this cursed place now. As the organizer of the event, Yu Feihong faced the most criticism and bore the greatest negative pressure. Finally, he found an outlet for his frustration and vented all his anger. With someone leading the charge, others quickly joined in, finding their emotional release through various accusations and curses. Let me tell you, we are students from prestigious universities, the future pillars of society. If we suffer any health issues from the cold, none of you will escape responsibility. You're living off taxpayers' money and not doing anything of substance. The country is wasting its resources on you. Why are there only compressed biscuits? How come there's not even a bit of chocolate? What kind of rescue is this? Why does this water taste so strange? If it's not mineral water, I won't drink it. Dealing with you military types is truly infuriating. You're all just a bunch of useless men. With a couple of zips? The zippers of 2 tents were pulled up from the inside, seemingly isolating the interior from the outside, creating 2 completely different worlds. Zhao Pengfei, Qin Feng, Li Jiaxing, Qi Meng, Chen Sanqi, and others stood in the pouring rain. The rain fell relentlessly, leaving them completely soaked with no dry spot in sight. Yet, despite this, the harsh words and various insults continued to pour out from the 2 tents. Qin Feng clenched his fists, filled with anger. He never expected that the people they were trying to rescue would turn out to be such ungrateful individuals. Every person present was struggling with a surge of anger within them. Qi Meng wished he could summon 2 bolts of lightning to strike the tent, silencing everyone inside. Suddenly, a purple flash of lightning illuminated the ground from the sky, revealing the figures of people traveling on a nearby mountain. Without exception, they all carried AK-47 assault rifles. Among them was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed man wearing a tactical vest, with a Remington 700 sniper rifle slung on his back. Chapter 106. This night is destined to be restless. Hello? Hello? Please respond if you receive this. In a makeshift tent at the foot of the mountain, Instructor Bai Yuan and a dozen new recruits were stationed to guard the weapons and equipment. Nearby, a police officer was assisting with communication regarding the rescue situation. He was trying to inquire about the conditions on the mountain using a high-frequency walkie-talkie, but no matter how he adjusted the channels, there was no response. Only the crackling sound of static. What's wrong, comrade? Can't make contact? Bai Yuan approached with concern. The officer attempted to tap the walkie-talkie a couple of times, but there was still no signal. It might be due to the bad weather and the storm affecting the radio signals from the mountain. Ugh, this storm couldn't have come at a worse time. Just as he finished speaking, a series of hurried footsteps could be heard outside. Figures rushed through the rain, quickly making their way to the tent. Hurry, grab some towels to dry them off. As the people burst into the tent, Bai Yuan immediately ordered towels to be fetched. But soon after, he noticed 2 new recruits being carried in. They had slipped while ascending the mountain, but fortunately, their injuries weren't too severe. One of them had hurt his leg, and Bai Yuan recognized him as the guy from the 6th squad who had been reluctant to enlist after being dumped by his girlfriend. Zhou Shangfei rolled up Li Xiangkang's pant leg to reveal a large abrasion on his calf, with a 6 to 7 centimeter gash oozing blood. Hang in there, Zhou Shangfei. The squad leader poured alcohol from the first aid kit directly onto Li Xiangkang's wound. Li Xiangkang grimaced in pain, clenching his teeth to hold back a scream. His fists pounding the ground without making a sound. What a tough guy. Everyone silently admired him, unaware that Li Xiangkang's transformation and growth were thanks to Qin Feng's unconventional guidance. Treat those injuries quickly, or they'll get infected, Gu Xiong shouted, prompting several new recruits to begin treating their wounds. Some had fallen during the rescue, while others had been scratched by sharp grass. Although these minor injuries didn't hinder their mobility, if left untreated, they could easily become infected. Concerned for the safety of the soldiers, Gu Xiong decided not to continue the ascent, since the trapped individuals had already been located by Zhao Pengfei and his team. They just needed to wait quietly for rescue at the mountaintop. Wait a minute, where are the 4th squad members? Where are Zhao Pengfei and the others? Gu Xiong took the towel that Bai Yuan handed him and casually wiped his face. We had only reached halfway up the mountain. Yet Team 4 had already reached the summit and found the last group of missing students. No wonder people say Zhao Pengfei has incredible luck. He always seems to benefit from others' misfortunes. This time, he might even earn a collective 3rd-class merit. After understanding what had happened, Bai Yuan couldn't help but laugh. Qin Feng truly was a lucky charm. Whenever he was around, Zhao Pengfei was bound to have good fortune. With so many people involved in the mountain search and rescue, it was indeed remarkable that only Team 4 had succeeded. Suddenly, a gasp echoed through the air. Gu Xiong and Bai Yuan turned to see the officer responsible for communication gradually turning from pale to terrified. Are you sure? This isn't a joke, is it? There are still 7 or 8 students trapped on the summit, along with a group of new recruits. Gu Xiong and Bai Yuan exchanged glances, their hearts sinking with unease. As soon as the call ended, they immediately pressed for answers. Comrade, what happened? I'm afraid I have some very bad news for you. The officer took a deep breath and looked seriously into their eyes. We just received a call from the armed police. Last night, armed intruders crossed the border and they may be heading our way. What? Is the information accurate? Both men were startled, their faces turning pale. The officer nodded helplessly. Around 3 this afternoon, a local resident who went up the mountain to forage for mushrooms reported seeing 5 or 6 suspicious individuals up there, including one with blonde hair and blue eyes. The rain hammered down on the tent, making a cacophony that was quite unsettling. Without thinking, Gu Xiong turned to rush out, but was stopped by the officer. Comrade, you can't go. Let me through. I can't let you go to your death. Damn it, my soldiers are up there. Gu Xiong's angry shout drew everyone's attention. Although they didn't know what had happened, they could tell from the captain's demeanor that something was seriously wrong. The officer stood firm at the door, refusing to let Gu Xiong pass. The armed police have already sent someone this way. They will be fine. If you go up now, all you'll do is create chaos. Beside them, Bai Yuan, equally anxious, recognized the officer's point. The visibility was poor, the terrain unfamiliar, and there was no live ammunition. Under these conditions, even if they made it up the mountain, they wouldn't be able to help at all. Moreover, the rain was now heavier than before. Describing it as a downpour was an understatement. Forcing their way up the mountain at this point would be nearly equivalent to seeking death. Despite Bai Yuan's persuasion, Gu Xiong remained agitated. But my soldiers are still up there. They will be fine. Bai Yuan continued to argue. The area up there is vast, and visibility is poor. Those intruders are focused on their route, and likely won't notice anything. Besides, Zhao Pengfei is an experienced soldier. You must trust his ability to respond. The rain kept pouring down, and everyone inside the tent felt a tightening in their hearts. Watching the heavy downpour outside, everyone silently prayed, hoping that the comrades from the 4th team and the group of university students would be safe, and that everyone could return home safely. Several military vehicles sped down the road, splashing up large droplets of rain. The windshield wipers worked tirelessly, desperately clearing the rain from the glass. According to the information from the armed police, there were a total of 6 armed individuals, 5 of whom had Asian features and were equipped with AK-47 assault rifles, with an unknown amount of ammunition. The remaining individual was a tall, blonde, blue-eyed Westerner, equipped with a tactical vest and a sniper rifle. From the bullet extracted from the body of a border guard, it was determined to be from a Remington 700. In the passenger seat, Zhu Huihui was reporting the intelligence just received from the armed police while looking at the tactical tablet. The driver, First Sergeant Kong, kept his eyes fixed on the road ahead, but a cold smile couldn't help but form on his face. 5 drug-dealing armed men and a mercenary dared to run wild in our territory? They really didn't know when they were in over their heads. Old Yuan, you better let me have a head this time. Don't let it be like last time when you took them all out. You want it. It's all yours. In the back seat, Yuan Feng was casually drawing on the fogged-up car window. Kong glanced at the rearview mirror, curled his lip, and muttered under his breath. You say that every time, yet you always shoot first. While Yuan Feng continued to refine his artwork, he also asked, what is the situation with the trapped individuals? Zhu Huihui continued her report. Currently, there are 7 trapped university students, 4 males and 3 females. In addition, there are 10 new recruits and a 3rd-term sergeant named Zhao Pengfei. However, due to the severe weather, we have lost radio contact, and they are currently all unaccounted for. Yuan Feng stopped his actions and sat up straight. After pondering for a moment, he expressionlessly ordered, Kong, push the speed to the maximum. We must reach the scene as quickly as possible without any further casualties. Also, notify the support team that as soon as the rain eases, the helicopter should head to the scene for assistance. Yes. The 2 responses came almost simultaneously. As Zhu Huihui dialed the phone, Kong pressed the accelerator almost to the floor. In the next second, the vehicle burst through the curtain of rain like a wild horse, with several military trucks following closely behind, darting into the darkness like arrows. Yuan Feng's gaze pierced through the fogged car window, looking out at the torrential rain. The sharp twilight seemed to want to pierce through the night. He sensed that this night would not be peaceful. At that moment, 6 figures had reached the mountaintop. Leading them was a gaunt man with a face full of scars. He wiped the rain from his face and scanned the surroundings. His gaze finally settled on 2 raised dark shapes in the distant woods. Suddenly, the sky lit up, followed by a rumble of thunder. Taking advantage of the brief light, the 2 shivering tents in the distance were revealed to everyone's sight. Tattoo Li Tsai, why don't you 2 go take a look? The leading man signaled, and his 2 subordinates immediately prepared to approach. However, just a couple of steps in, they were stopped by a burly man with blonde hair and blue eyes. There's an old saying that goes, caution ensures a long voyage, meaning that only by being careful and prudent can one navigate further. Mr. Shaka, my suggestion is to avoid approaching anything unknown. Understood. The emaciated man thought this made a lot of sense, so he waved his hand to tell the 2 to spread out a bit. The 2 subordinates immediately raised their dark guns, aiming at the 2 tents from a distance and pulling the triggers. Chapter 107. The worst fears were realized. Heavy breathing echoed in the cramped space. On the northern side of the mountain, there was a slope, and at the bottom of the slope was a naturally formed depression. The area, only about 5 or 6 square meters, was now packed with people. What on earth is going on? Wasn't it said we would be rescued once the rain stopped? Why did we end up in this godforsaken place? My clothes are completely soaked. If I catch a cold, who will take responsibility for that? Everyone who doesn't want to die, shut up. Zhao Pengfei used the authority he had from his military days to somewhat intimidate the group of pampered youths. However, the girl named Gu Xiaolu continued to complain under her breath. muttering about personal freedom being violated and wanting to file a complaint against Zhao Pengfei for being too rude. Zhao Pengfei's face turned pale and flushed, but he remained silent. Qin Feng clenched his fists, wishing he could slap the woman. Fortunately, her incessant grumbling didn't last long, as it was abruptly interrupted by a sudden burst of gunfire from above. It seemed that the guess was correct. Zhao Pengfei turned his head and gave a bitter smile to Qin Feng. In response, Qin Feng expressed that he didn't want to be so accurate in his predictions. Just a moment ago, thanks to a flash of lightning, Qin Feng had noticed something unusual in the distant mountains and promptly reported it to Zhao Pengfei. Years of experience as a scout had made Zhao Pengfei immediately alert. Although he couldn't see clearly, his instincts told him that the group approaching was definitely not rescue personnel. If they were indeed rescuers, they would be using flashlights to try to establish contact with them. Qin Feng boldly speculated that these people might be armed militants. While no one could be 100% sure, even a 1% chance was too risky for Zhao Pengfei to take. So many lives were at stake. And it was no laughing matter. The two tents above were too conspicuous, leaving no time for explanations, so Zhao Pengfei quickly led everyone to this spot. When the university students learned there were armed militants above, fear was evident on their faces. Are we going to stay here until they leave? Is it safe here? Will we be discovered? Someone asked anxiously in a low voice. Zhao Pengfei looked up at the tents and then lowered his voice, saying, "Don't worry. As long as we're here, you will definitely be safe." Zhao Pengfei's words felt like a reassuring pill for the university students. After all, he was from the People's Liberation Army and their only support at the moment. However, Qin Feng was acutely aware of how troublesome the current situation was. The people above were reckless. They didn't care about taking more lives. In fact, to ensure their own survival, they might even take a few hostages. Finding a way to escape the current predicament and safely evacuate everyone had become a very tricky issue. There were about 17 or 18 people here. The more people there were, the larger the target became, making a safe evacuation even more difficult. "Squad leader, I have an idea." Qin Feng suddenly thought of something. But Zhao Pengfei didn't give him any chance to speak. "Qin Feng, I know what you want to do, but you don't need to handle this. I have a more important task for you." "Nobody? How could there be nobody?" Inside the tent, apart from some water bottles and packaging from compressed biscuits, there wasn't a single shadow. Shaka's face turned pale. "Find them for me. Those cunning people from that country must be hiding in some nearby bushes or grass. We must flush them out. Mr. Shaka, let us not forget the purpose of our mission." The blonde-haired, blue-eyed man kindly reminded him. "There are military police and officers from that country searching for us behind. Staying any longer increases our danger. We should immediately get the people and retreat along the planned route. Jelani, you are just a bodyguard and enforcer I hired with money. You have no authority to interfere with my decisions." Shaka was very dissatisfied with this Western man who had been offending him all along. However, considering that he might need him later, he explained, "It's precisely because there are many military police searching for us that we need a safeguard." The tent was new, and the broken camping lamp still radiated warmth, indicating that the people hadn't gone far. As long as we could catch one or two, even if we were surrounded, we could still escape unscathed. Jelani looked at the pockmarked Asian man with some surprise. He realized he had indeed underestimated him. However, since he had been paid, he would just follow the rules. Moreover, what this guy said wasn't entirely unreasonable. Soldiers from that country were different from those from any other nation. Even if it meant their own death, they would never allow civilians to be harmed. Although this seemed foolish and laughable to him as a mercenary who only cared about money, in the current situation, an extra layer of assurance was indeed a good choice. "We can only stay here for a maximum of 15 minutes. Beyond that, our risk factor will double. That's enough." Just then, a figure suddenly dashed out from the bottom of the slope in the distance. In full view of everyone, it created a commotion while running down the mountain. "Over there! There's someone!" Shaka shouted in excitement, and immediately led his men to chase after it, firing shots in that direction to try to force the person to stop. But the figure ran very quickly, weaving through the trees and using them as cover. Jelani glanced at the quickly passing figures in the scope, and his brow furrowed slightly. He sensed that something was off. So, he put away his gun and looked thoughtfully around. Meanwhile, hearing the increasingly distant gunfire, Qin Feng immediately instructed the others seriously. "We will split into two teams. Those in the back, hold on to the clothes of the person in front as we head down the mountain. No matter what happens, do not look back." "Understood." Qin Feng led 7 or 8 people, while Qi Meng's group did the same. The purpose of this approach was to ensure safety while minimizing exposure. "Keep up, everyone, follow me." Qin Feng forged ahead, guiding everyone down the mountain. This was the task Zhao Pengfei had entrusted to him, ensuring that everyone reached the foot of the mountain safely. As he listened to the continuous gunfire, Qin Feng silently prayed in his heart. He hoped that the squad leader would also escape safely and that nothing would happen. The heavy rain poured down, blurring the line between earth and sky. The once arrogant university students had turned into frightened quails. Each person tightly grasped the clothing of the person in front, cautiously stepping on the slippery mud as they made their way down. Wait, we're one short. Li Jiaxing's reminder made Qin Feng turn around sharply, realizing that someone had indeed strayed from the group. Not only had they left the group, but this person was even running back up the mountain. Without thinking further, Qin Feng quickly chased after them and grabbed them. However, the girl named Gu Xiaolu insisted that she was going back to find her phone. Qin Feng felt as if his worldview was about to shatter. What was more important, a life or a phone? He had never encountered such a foolish person before. It's just a phone. We can get it later. Come with me now. Just as he caught Gu Xiaolu's arm, she broke free with force. No, there's important data on my phone that affects my graduation. I have to find it now? Saying this, she recklessly ran back up the mountain, demanding that Qin Feng accompany her, claiming it was the army's duty to protect the lives and property of civilians. Damn it, she was even playing the moral card. Qin Feng really didn't want to waste another word with such a brainless person. Just as he was about to knock her out and take her away, a gunshot suddenly rang out from a distance. Immediately after, Gu Xiaolu was shot in the leg. Blood splattered, and she collapsed to the ground. Her piercing wails and cries tore through the rain, echoing in the night. Qin Feng was terrified. He had just wanted to cover her mouth. But it was already too late. The armed men who had been pursuing Zhao Pengfei all stopped in their tracks upon hearing the commotion. At that moment, from the walkie-talkie in Shaka's hand came a mocking voice. You've been fooled. They used a diversion to lead us away. Don't worry about the one who ran off. The real prize is here, and there are quite a few of them. Hearing this, a cruel smile appeared on Shaka's face. Immediately notify the subordinates and head towards the source of the screams. At this moment, Zhao Pengfei is leaning against a big tree, panting heavily in the rain. He watches as the enemies who were originally chasing him head off in another direction. Zhao Pengfei's fists pound the ground, and his heart sinks to the bottom. The worst thing he feared has happened. These so-called intellectuals are like landmines. Initially, he wanted to divert the enemies on his own to buy time for everyone to escape. Now, with this sudden change, it's clear that plan is no longer viable. But even so, he cannot allow these guys to harm any citizen of his country. As Zhao Pengfei turns to chase after the armed men, Qin Feng has already knocked out the brainless one and handed him to Qi Ming and the others. He also chooses to stay behind, preparing to delay as much as possible to create an opportunity for the others to escape. Chapter 108. They are all worthless meat. Brother Feng, Class Vice, we will stay with you. Gu Xiaolu and Qin Sanqi, who had just received the knocked-out person thrown by Qin Feng, immediately said anxiously. However, seeing the figures moving in the distant forest, Qin Feng decisively shook his head and quickly explained. The class leader's plan to lure them has failed. Now someone must attract their attention again. Don't worry, I won't confront them head-on. I just need to find a way to stall them. You staying behind will only complicate things for me. Then let me stay. I can help you. Qi Ming began to speak, but was interrupted by Qin Feng raising his hand. The team going down the mountain needs someone to lead. Besides the class leader, you have the highest combat ability here. If you don't lead the team, what will we do if we encounter enemies halfway? Qi Ming was speechless. He knew Qin Feng was right. If someone stays to lure the enemies, there must be someone to lead the team down the mountain. No one knows if armed men will appear on the way. If they do, someone with combat training like him might be able to handle it, while others truly have no way to deal with it. Right now, the only thing he can do is to ensure the safe passage of the people down the mountain and then report the situation to the squad leader for assistance. Li Jiaxing and Qin Sanqi wanted to say something more, but they were pulled away by Qi Ming. At this moment, every second wasted increases the danger. Brother Feng, you and the class leader must be safe. Qin Feng said in a half-joking tone. Neither the fire nor the explosion killed me. Just leading these guys in circles isn't a big deal. But everyone knew that the danger this time was no less than that of a fire. The members of the 4th squad stopped saying anything else and quickly led the team down the mountain cautiously. This was not the time to show off, and no one was thinking about achieving any merit. Reality had given them a resounding slap in the face. Without weapons, even if there were many of them, they were still lambs to the slaughter in front of the enemy. Moreover, their primary responsibility now is to escort these civilians down the mountain. No matter how ungrateful these people might be, as long as they are citizens of their country, as soldiers, Qi Ming and the others must protect them and ensure their safe passage down the mountain. In the torrential rain, amidst the dense forest, a figure was swiftly moving through the area. Zhao Pengfei focused on the last armed individual, relentlessly pursuing from behind. He had to take the risk of eliminating one first to obtain a weapon. Only with a gun could he attempt to hold off this group. Just then, Zhao Pengfei seemed to sense something, abruptly halting his steps. Bang! A bullet shattered the raindrops, whizzing past him and embedding itself into a tree trunk. Cold sweat broke out on Zhao Pengfei as he instinctively dove behind a pile of stones. Almost as he landed, 2 bullets struck the top of the stone, sending debris flying. Zhao Pengfei's face turned pale, his heart racing. Just moments ago, he had narrowly escaped death twice. There was a sniper, and a skilled one at that. If Zhao Pengfei were not a seasoned veteran with 10 years of experience, or if he had slacked off even a bit in his previous training, he would likely have been hit and lying on the ground, unable to move. His skills were impressive, and his alertness was high. On a raised mound at the top of the mountain, Gelante was lying on the ground. He moved his eyes away from the night vision scope, revealing a look of surprise. Missing several shots had frustrated him. In fact, he had noticed Zhao Pengfei from the very beginning and, judging by his attire, identified him as a soldier from a certain country. Although he didn't know why Zhao Pengfei was there, as long as he wasn't armed, he posed no threat. At that moment, Gelante had no intention of helping on the other side. Few could evade his bullets on the battlefield, and he was prepared to have some fun with Zhao Pengfei. As for those frightened individuals, he was confident his team could handle them without issue. Suddenly, something appeared in the scope. As Gelante slightly adjusted his aim, his finger was already on the trigger. With a bang, a bullet was propelled from the gun's chamber. The next second, it hit its target. Watching the hat fly off, Zhao Pengfei's expression turned grim. Damn it, this guy's reaction speed was faster than he had imagined. He had barely poked his hat out before it was shot away. If he rushed out now, it would likely be a one-way ticket to death. Zhao Pengfei turned his head to the other side, feeling anxious. He wasn't worried about his own escape, but was concerned that Qin Feng wouldn't be able to get down safely. Although the armed individuals that had chased him earlier had poor aim, bullets were indiscriminate on the battlefield. A stray bullet could wreak unimaginable havoc if it flew into a crowd. Meanwhile, in a patch of grass half his height, Qin Feng was lying low. His eyes fixed on two armed individuals not far away. He observed that there were a total of 5 approaching enemies. However, they were not gathered together, but rather spread out with some distance between them. They were clearly trained in military tactics. Eliminating all of them was unrealistic given Qin Feng's current situation and capabilities. So, he prepared to hold on as long as possible, hoping to take down one of them. He aimed to attract attention with a commotion, thereby slowing down the pursuit of Li Jiaxing and the others. People tend to prioritize resolving immediate troubles. As long as Qin Feng could create enough noise, he could buy more time for everyone to escape. Qin Feng narrowed his eyes, focusing on the short man on the far left. On one hand, this guy was the closest to him. On the other hand, he looked like an easy target. The footsteps of the two ahead grew closer, and he could even hear one of them speaking in a bird-like language to a companion nearby. Qin Feng's heart raced, and his palm holding the dagger began to sweat with tension. It was his first real combat experience in 2 lifetimes, and it was a cold weapon fight against hot weapons. Qin Feng felt uncertain, and nervousness was inevitable. However, after the last rescue and a brush with death, he realized that Taiyang Xingjian had the ability to lock blood. Therefore, as long as he kept calm and prevented these guys from getting headshots or shooting through the heart, there was a chance of survival. With adrenaline surging, Qin Feng's emotions shifted from nervousness to excitement and exhilaration. For some reason, he felt a strong urge to know what it felt like to plunge a knife into an enemy's body. Comrade soldier, I think it would be better if we split up. What did you say? I didn't mean anything bad. I just feel that following you is too dangerous. Especially since you don't even have a gun. On the way down the mountain, Yu Feihong looked at Gu Xiaolu, who was unconscious on Chen Sanchi's back and had a gunshot wound on her leg, and said with lingering fear. His words seemed to trigger a chain reaction, amplifying the fear in the hearts of other classmates. I think Yu Feihong is right. Maybe we should split up? Yes. Gathering together makes us too obvious a target. It's safer to scatter. Moreover, I feel like these bad guys are after you. If you weren't here, we would actually be safer. With everyone's support, Yu Feihong gained confidence. As the vice president of the student council and a future pillar of society, he felt it was his responsibility to stand up in such a crisis and guide everyone to safety. Just as he was firmly preparing to part ways with Qi Ming, a sudden gust of wind rushed towards him. In the next second, he caught a hefty blow to the face. His body felt like it lost weight. Crashing to the ground, his face landed in the mud, stuck and unable to pull out. Following that, Qi Ming picked him up as if he were a chick, angrily warning everyone, "My orders are to safely escort all of you down the mountain, so you better behave during this time. If anyone dares to say another word, my fists won't be merciful." Qi Ming's friendly reminder proved effective. Yu Feihong's face swelled up, but he immediately became obedient. Even the speed of the group descending the mountain has noticeably increased. Li Jiaxing, who was arranged to be at the end of the line, spat contemptuously at the so-called intellectuals and pillars of society ahead of him. They are all so pathetic. However, he also began to worry about his good brother. Although the earlier slap felt satisfying and was provoked by circumstances, it ultimately violated discipline. If these ingrates really caused a ruckus, it could jeopardize Qi Ming's position when they returned. This is a ticking time bomb and a major trouble that must be resolved. Chapter 109, I'm going to kill. Wait for my return, poof. Qin Feng jumped up. While knocking his opponent down, he forcefully plunged the knife into their heart. Hot blood sprayed across Qin Feng's face, causing him to involuntarily shudder. As he sensed the enemy's life gradually ebbing away, his cerebral cortex reached an almost peak level of activity. Everything around him seemed exceptionally clear. Even the movements of two armed men not far away aiming at him appeared to be in slow motion. Is this the feeling of killing? Like cutting tofu with a knife. It seems even easier than imagined. In a flash, Qin Feng attempted to pull the knife out. However, the handle was soaked in blood and extremely slippery. He tried to change his grip, but accidentally opened the enemy's heart chamber. Then, the knife got stuck against the guy's ribcage. Damn it, even in death, you want to take my knife with you. With no other choice, Qin Feng had to grab the AK-47 from the man's hands. But just as this old comrade agreed to lend the gun to Qin Feng, his companions were not having it. A barrage of bullets began to rain down, sending debris flying everywhere. With no other option, Qin Feng could only run into the woods, darting between trees like an eel. The bullets chasing after him struck the tree trunks, causing the leaves to rustle violently. Boss, Tuda is dead. Shaka looked at the lifeless body on the ground, filled with rage. With the earlier experience in mind, he knew that Qin Feng's goal was to delay them. But having been fooled once, he certainly wouldn't fall for it a second time. Why chase after a lively monkey when there are so many sheep to catch? Ignore him, keep chasing. Just shoot down the yin people when you see them, leave two alive, and kill the rest. Understood, boss. One subordinate was the first to leap over a fallen comrade's body and quickly rush down the mountain. Shaka glanced around and waited for the other two subordinates to catch up. Once he ensured their safety, he followed suit. In reality, the straight line distance between both parties wasn't far, at most 200 to 300 meters. However, with trees and vegetation providing cover, along with the rain-soaked night, it created an opportunity for Qi Ming and the others to escape and posed a certain obstacle to the armed men's pursuit. Damn, I killed one of you, and you're not even chasing me? Seeing that the enemy wasn't coming after him, Qin Feng suddenly felt anxious. The rain has diminished significantly compared to before, which means they are likely to catch up with Qi Ming and the others. At the moment, Qin Feng's hands are still trembling involuntarily. This is the aftermath of his first kill. Some fear is something he must overcome sooner or later. Since that's the case, why not just get used to it? Qin Feng raised his hand and slapped himself, and his hands, overtaken by negative emotions, immediately returned to normal. He really wanted to pick up the gun from the corpse he had just encountered, but the current situation left no room for retreat. If he kills one, won't they chase him? Then let him kill another and see how desperate they become. Qin Feng quickly darted through the woods, planning to take a shortcut. He took off his water bottle and wrapped it around his hand. There they were. He spotted the group from the neighboring country. The armed men at the front were like they were on drugs, shouting and firing their guns wildly. The sudden gunfire startled Qi Ming and the others below, making them duck and cover their heads. But even so, they didn't stop. Instead, they ran faster, knowing that stopping now would lead to certain death. Boss, they are right below us, all of them. One guy shouted excitedly, as if he had discovered treasure. Shaka, who was following behind, wore a cruel smile. Having been neglected since childhood, he viewed killing as a hobby. Earlier, they could have crossed the line quietly, but his itch to challenge the limits of the Eastern Giant was too strong. Father, I will prove to you that the so-called Great Eastern Nation is nothing remarkable. This time, I will make you see me in a new light, to show you how excellent your youngest son is. As long as this corridor is cleared, as long as I bring Professor Qin back, the profits will multiply, and we will become the most prominent family in the region. Suddenly, Shaka's smile froze, and his eyes widened. From the right side of the woods, a shadow leaped out, like a cheetah. The object in hand swung around like a hammer, crashing down on the head of the guy in front. With a thud, the metal water bottle, filled with gravel, struck his head hard. The immense force caved in his skull, sending him flying, his fate uncertain. Having successfully ambushed, Qin Feng rolled into the grass after landing. Before the bullets arrived, he quickly crawled behind a large rock to hide. Bang, bang, bang. The two successful ambushes enraged the remaining men. Shaka, seemingly mad, yelled as he unleashed a barrage of bullets at the rock where Qin Feng was hiding. Feeling the rock tremble violently, Qin Feng could only curl up as much as possible, waiting for an opportunity to escape. Unfortunately, the area was relatively open. Besides the exposed large rock, there was nowhere else to hide, and it was still 7 or 8 meters away from the nearby woods. Unless these three guys can let Qin Feng run a bit like playing a game of red light, green light, it's clear that he has already drawn their ire twice. And they are furious. Right now, they are itching to crush both Qin Feng and the large rock he is hiding behind to vent their frustration. Get out here. You coward. Show yourself, you turtle. The gunfire was mixed with various curses, but unfortunately, Qin Feng couldn't understand a single word. However, it was easy to guess that they were using some very colorful language. At the same time, two figures in the woods to the right were in hot pursuit. Hearing the dense gunfire, Zhao Pengfei was worried that something had happened to Qin Feng and ultimately risked his life to rush out. He paid the price with a bullet wound to his shoulder, but fortunately, it was a through-and-through injury, so it wasn't too serious. Suddenly, Zhao Pengfei spotted a dead, armed man ahead, a knife sticking out of his chest. He quickly picked up the AK-47 and instantly aimed it at the back, firing a burst of bullets. Gerent was caught off guard by this sudden turn of events and hurriedly ducked behind a tree, frowning as he cursed to himself. How could they have managed to get killed in such a situation? They were truly a bunch of useless teammates. After briefly suppressing the pursuers, Zhao Pengfei clutched the gun and desperately ran towards the source of the gunfire. Although he wasn't sure what was happening there, he had a bad feeling about it. Soon, he reached the edge of the woods. The rain had lightened significantly compared to before. From his vantage point, he could see Qin Feng hiding behind a rock, isolated and defenseless, while 3 armed men were closing in and firing at him. Damn it, why isn't he coming out? Even Shaka, who had lost 2 of his men, became cautious. He didn't plan to get closer, but signaled to his subordinate nearby. The guy named Ricker pulled out a grenade from his pocket, pulled the pin, and prepared to throw it behind the rock where Qin Feng was hiding. Unbeknownst to Qin Feng, Zhao Pengfei was terrified and rushed out of the woods, aiming his gun at the guy about to throw the grenade and unleashing a barrage of fire. The bullets rained down like a storm, hitting the man and causing him to spray blood, with the grenade falling to the ground. 2 seconds later, there was a loud explosion. The man was instantly blown to pieces, his remains a bloody mess. Even the rain falling from the sky turned crimson. Qin Feng shrank back, startled, his ears ringing. After ensuring it was safe, he cautiously peered out. He soon saw a familiar figure rushing towards him. Squad leader. Qin Feng, hurry, let's go. With Zhao Pengfei providing cover fire, Qin Feng immediately dashed out from behind cover. Bang! A gunshot suddenly rang out in the forest. Before Qin Feng could react, he was tackled to the ground by Zhao Pengfei. With his back on the ground, the two rolled back behind cover together. Squad leader, are you okay? Qin Feng, shaken but unharmed, quickly asked with concern. I'm fine. That's good. Qin Feng helped Zhao Pengfei up from the ground. Just as he was about to breathe a sigh of relief, he suddenly smelled a strong metallic scent. It was then that he noticed Zhao Pengfei's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. Not only was his shoulder bleeding, but he had also been shot in the abdomen, blood gushing out profusely. Squad leader, you've been hit. In a panic, Qin Feng tried to cover the wound on his abdomen with his hands, but the blood kept seeping through his fingers, like a faucet that couldn't be turned off. Qin Feng, you need to hurry and leave. They have a sniper. I still have a few rounds left in my gun. I'll cover you. Before he could finish speaking, Zhao Pengfei suddenly felt lightheaded. By the time he realized what was happening, he was already on Qin Feng's back, who was sprinting down the mountain. They're trying to escape. Chase them down. We can't let them get away. Gelante, you flank them from the other side. These two must die. Holding his bleeding ears, Shaka got up from the ground, consumed by rage. Right now, those guys were out of reach, but one of them was severely injured. Capturing them as hostages would yield the same result. Although Gelante was worried that reinforcements from the local forces would arrive soon, especially since the rain had lessened, he decided to take the risk when he heard Shaka was willing to pay an extra 50,000. For money, all risks were worth it. Gelante tossed aside his sniper rifle, pulled out a submachine gun, and quickly pursued Qin Feng down the mountain. Qin Feng, take me with you. You can't shake them off. Put me down. I'm just a burden. Shut up. Qin Feng, eyes reddened, ran desperately down the mountain path. I promised to take the bullets for you. Who the hell told you to act on your own? Being the squad leader feels good, doesn't it? Zhao Pengfei, like a child being scolded by a teacher, was left speechless by the reprimand. Despite the tearing pain from the bumps along the way, his face was filled with an unshakable smile. Having such good soldiers was worth it, even if it meant death. Meanwhile, Qin Feng didn't head down the mountain where Qi Ming and the others were, but took a different route. However, as he ran, the pursuing group followed closely behind. Gunshots rang out from behind, and Qin Feng had to dodge, while also taking care of Zhao Pengfei's injuries. Watching Zhao Pengfei grow weaker from blood loss and nearly fall unconscious several times, Qin Feng's heart ached. But he knew that if he didn't deal with their pursuers, both he and the squad leader would die here today. So, Qin Feng stopped running altogether. He hid Zhao Pengfei in a patch of bushes nearby and marked the spot. Just as he was about to take the gun from Zhao Pengfei's arms, Zhao Pengfei weakly grabbed the gun bag. Qin Feng, where are you going? At that moment, Zhao Pengfei's face was pale, his lips white. A significant loss of blood, coupled with the low temperature, had begun to cloud his consciousness. Qin Feng took a deep breath and flashed him a bright smile. Squad leader, I'm going to kill someone. Wait for me to come back. With that, he took the AK-47 with only 5 bullets left from Zhao Pengfei's hands, exuding a murderous aura as he plunged into the night. Chapter 110. Stay in place. Support will arrive soon. Where are they? Why are they gone? I clearly saw them running this way. Search for them. Even if I have to dig 3 feet into the ground, I want them found. Shaka, who had chased to this place, looked around with fiery eyes. He pointed in one direction, ordering the only remaining subordinate to search. Meanwhile, he headed in the opposite direction to search. Jalanti arrived late and was already losing patience. Using gaming terminology, the current situation had deviated from the main mission and could only be considered a side quest. Although Shaka promised him $50,000 if he found the person, money was useless without life to spend it. The guy who had successfully ambushed them several times might not be very strong, but he was incredibly cunning. Slippery like an eel. The area was filled with dense forests and overgrown weeds, and it was so dark. In such circumstances, finding someone quickly was not an easy task. Jalanti squinted at the red and blue lights gathering down the hill and reminded him at an inopportune moment, Mr. Shaka, we have wasted too much time here. We must leave quickly. Otherwise, when their support arrives, we will be trapped here and no one will escape. In a heated state, rationality significantly decreases. Shaka was clearly blinded by rage and refused to listen to any advice. Not only had Qin Feng killed 3 of his subordinates right under his nose, but he also managed to escape unharmed while carrying the severely injured soldier from a neighboring country. This was not just a slap in Shaka's face. It was like someone defecating on his face. Shaka was originally a person who cared deeply about his image and enjoyed challenging others' limits. Yet today, despite being in a position of advantage and armed, he had been publicly humiliated. It was akin to an adult with a knife being bullied by an elementary school student. How could he swallow this humiliation? I don't need you to teach me how to do things. Remember, I am the boss. And you are just a mercenary doing a job for pay. Jalanti's expression darkened at Shaka's insult, feeling particularly displeased. However, he did not refute him, after all. This was the client. No matter what, one should never go against money. If it came down to it, he could tear Shaka apart with words once the payment was received. 3 minutes. If we haven't T left by then, any dangers we encounter afterwards will have nothing to do with me, and I won't lift a finger to save you. Moreover, if you accidentally die, I will go find your father for the remaining money. Understood. Although Shaka was furious, there was still a trace of rationality left in his heart. He was aware of how dangerous the current situation was, but he was more focused on venting his anger. Come out, get out here. Shaka wildly fired in all directions, trying to force Qin Feng out. Jalante watched his frenzied behavior and turned away, a hint of mockery flashing across his face. Now he understood why this guy was not valued in his family. He was nothing more than a giant baby with underdeveloped brains and delusions of grandeur. At that moment, the last remaining armed man noticed a bloodstain on a blade of grass not far away. He bent down and followed the blood trail. Eventually, he found a dense bush about the height of a person tied with a cloth strip. Excited, he immediately turned to inform Shaka. At that instant, Qin Feng, hidden in the mud, suddenly leapt up like a demon emerging from hell, driving a dagger viciously into the man's jaw. The force was so great that it almost lifted him off the ground. The sharp tip of the knife pierced straight into the opponent's brainstem like chopsticks into tofu. When he pulled it out, Qin Feng even cruelly twisted the handle, causing a large spurt of blood. There, yes, over there. Shaka turned back and shouted angrily, his gun continuously spitting fire. But Qin Feng had already used this man as a meat shield. Several bullets hit the corpse, completing a wave of post-mortem punishment. Qin Feng then rushed to hide behind a large tree that 2 people could embrace. Bastard, you can't escape. While Shaka changed magazines, he signaled Jalante to quickly circle around. But just then, a figure suddenly lunged out from behind a tree on the left. Instinctively, Shaka pulled the gun's bolt, and his body reacted by aiming and shooting. When all the bullets hit the target, he was shocked to find it was still the same corpse. Damn, I was fooled. Just as he realized this and tried to dodge, Qin Feng had already charged out from the other side of the tree like a specter. Without even aiming, he fired a burst of bullets. The remaining 5 bullets traced a line through the air. The next second, Shaka fell to the ground with a scream. He had been shot in the calf and arm, blood gushing out. During gun training, Zhao Pengfei had mentioned that in a real battlefield, hitting the target by any means necessary is always the top priority. Don't always think about aiming for the head or hitting the heart. As long as the bullet can hit the enemy, no matter where, the powerful impact and the bleeding wound will immediately make the opponent lose most of their combat effectiveness. Qin Feng remembered this very clearly and applied it effectively. Watching Shaka struggling to get up from the ground, stumbling and fleeing in a sorry state, the slightly deformed metal water bottle that had helped Qin Feng secure the first blood reappeared in his hand, just as he was about to charge forward. Swinging his arm to send Shaka to meet his maker, a strong sense of crisis suddenly washed over Qin Feng, causing the hair on his back to stand up. Before his brain could react, his body had already collapsed to the ground. The sound of bullets whizzed past him, almost grazing his scalp. If he had been half a second slower, he would have been turned into a sieve. The firepower from the opposing submachine gun was too intense. making it impossible for Qin Feng to lift his head. At that moment, he could only hide in a small depression in the ground. Suddenly, the walkie-talkie at Qin Feng's waist vibrated twice. He excitedly answered it, and immediately heard Gu Zhiyong's anxious voice on the other end. Although there was a lot of static and some words were unclear, being able to make contact was already a pleasant surprise. Hello, Zhao Pengfei, can you hear me? Squad leader, this is Qin Feng. Hearing Qin Feng's voice, Gu Zhiyong was so excited that he almost cried. Just as he was about to speak again, the walkie-talkie was abruptly snatched away by instructor Bai Yuan. Qin Feng, the university students from your squad have been safely escorted down the mountain. Support and medical assistance are on their way up. How are you two doing? I'm fine, but the squad leader has been shot, and his condition is not good. Qin Feng replied urgently. I've hidden him in the third bush from the right on the south slope, the one tied with a cloth strip. Remember, it's the third bush from the right, not the one with the cloth strip. There are two big rocks next to it. You'll find it as soon as you arrive. Hearing that Qin Feng was okay and had hidden the injured Zhao Pengfei, Gu Zhiyong and Bai Yuan exchanged a glance and breathed a sigh of relief. The new recruits in the squad escorting the university students down had sustained varying degrees of injuries and fractures, but they were now safely in an ambulance and out of immediate danger. At this moment, their biggest concern was the safety of Qin Feng and Zhao Pengfei. After all, they had stayed behind to lure the enemy away to create an escape opportunity for everyone, and the level of danger was evident. Gu Zhiyong leaned closer to the walkie-talkie and said loudly, the armed police and special forces have gone up the mountain. Just leave the rest to them. Stay where you are and don't go anywhere. Make sure to stay safe. Yes, squad leader. After the call ended, Qin Feng's tense heart relaxed a little. With rescue forces heading up the mountain, the squad leader would be saved. For now, he just needed to ensure his own safety. The rest would be handled by the armed police and special forces. The gunfire above was weakening, and the sounds were fading away, indicating that the enemy was likely retreating. Qin Feng cautiously peeked out from the dirt pit and saw two figures in the distance indeed running away. One of them, limping, was the person he had just injured. The other one should be the sniper. Qin Feng's body shook, and his pupils contracted sharply. He immediately spotted the figure slung over the sniper's shoulder. It was Zhao Pengfei, who had already fallen unconscious. Damn it! Qin Feng slammed his fists into the ground, his anger boiling like magma. With his eyes ablaze, he picked up a gun from the ground and charged forward recklessly. At this moment, there was only one thought in Qin Feng's mind. We must bring the squad leader back. Chapter 111. Caution in action. I truly was blind. The rain at 4 o'clock in the morning was like a thin veil covering the world. It lacked the urgency of a downpour and the volatility of a thunderstorm. Amidst the gentle drizzle, many shadows appeared on the mountainside. A large number of armed police and special forces had set up a massive net, slowly closing in on the mountain. At this moment, Yuan Feng, the captain of the Thunder Leopard Special Operations Team, was leading 8 fully armed Special Forces members, charging swiftly up the mountain in a combat formation. Stop! Yuan Feng raised his fist, and everyone behind him immediately halted. He climbed a 2-meter-high stone wall that was nearly vertical. Once at the top, he saw an armed man lying in a pool of blood, half of his head deformed. The other Special Forces members quickly climbed up, and, upon seeing the man's tragic state, their eyes flashed with surprise. Blunt force trauma to the head. Quite resilient. Still holding on to life? Leave him for the police. Let's see if they can extract any information later. Understood. Captain, there's a discovery over here. Someone shouted not far away. When Yuan Feng arrived, he only saw a scene of devastation. Looking at the debris and blood scattered across the ground, his expression remained unchanged, as if he had long since grown accustomed to it. Instead, a large stone nearby, riddled with bullet holes, caught his attention. He approached and traced the bullet holes with his finger, deducing that someone must have been hiding behind the stone. The attackers had opened fire from 3 different positions. The broken body on the ground was likely one of the armed men, killed by a grenade explosion. The team continued to advance while covering each other, searching for traces of the enemy. But suddenly, Yuan Feng turned his head and focused on a patch of grass that had suddenly flattened. In the grass lay the lifeless body of an armed man, a knife embedded in his chest. The body was already cold, and the blood on his chest had begun to darken. Yuan Feng took out a handkerchief from his pocket and wrapped it around the knife's handle. With a bit of effort, he pulled the knife out. The blade had lodged in the ribs, indicating that it was likely a novice who had done this. Probably their first kill. Kong Lai squatted nearby and immediately offered his assessment. Yuan Feng did not respond, but instead gazed thoughtfully at the blood-stained military knife. He then tossed the knife to Kong Lai, instructing him to keep it safe. At that moment, a voice suddenly came through Yuan Feng's earpiece. Captain, we just received news from the police. Signs of a struggle were found near the bushes on the south side of the mountain, with a large amount of blood and a body of an armed man, but no sign of the enemy. Down the mountain, in a temporary command post set up with tents, Zhu Huihui was intently focused on her computer, reporting the first-hand intelligence she had gathered to Yuan Feng. As an information warfare operator, she didn't need to personally enter the battlefield. Zhu Huihui's responsibility is to sift through various fragmented information, summarizing and conveying useful combat intelligence. In simple terms, she acts as an information relay hub, assisting the team. Just then, Gu Xiong rushed over anxiously, grabbing Zhu Huihui's shoulders and nervously asking, Huihui, have you found my soldier on the mountain? The third bush from the right on the southern slope, not the one tied with a cloth strip. There are 2 big stones nearby. Zhu Huihui was taken aback by his reckless behavior. However, considering the urgency of the situation, she didn't think much of it. There, she only found a lot of blood stains and a body of an armed man, but did not locate the sergeant named Zhao Pengfei. How is that possible? Gu Xiong's head felt like it was about to explode, and he almost shouted every word. Qin Feng told me directly over the radio that the person was hiding there, and I told him to stay put and not move. Zhu Huihui wasted no time and immediately contacted a captain of the armed police on site. However, the response was still that no one had been found. Neither Zhao Pengfei, who had been shot, nor Qin Feng could be located. Gu Xiong felt as if thunder was rumbling in his head. He couldn't understand why no one was there. Qin Feng had no reason to deceive him. Or could it be that they encountered some unforeseen events afterward? Zhu Huihui initially wanted to offer some comforting words, but Gu Xiong had already rushed out of the tent without looking back. Zhao Pengfei, Qin Feng, you can't get into trouble. You must not get into trouble. He said this while urgently making his way up the mountain. Coincidentally, Zhu Huihui forgot to mute her microphone. Therefore, their conversation was heard clearly by Yuan Feng. Qin Feng. Yuan Feng squinted, and a young man's face suddenly appeared in his mind. He had a strong impression of this name. A firefighting hero, a first-class meritorious service member, a people's guardian. Importantly, he was still a new recruit. Suddenly, it was as if Yuan Feng's mind had cleared a series of obstacles, and he quickly pieced everything together. The military knife lodged in the ribs, the criminal severely injured by a blunt object, and that large stone full of bullet holes. In a very short time, Yuan Feng had roughly deduced Qin Feng's purpose and course of action. However, the whereabouts of Qin Feng and the veteran officer became a mystery. At that moment, a voice came through Yuan Feng's earpiece again. But this time it wasn't Zhu Huihui, it was someone from Team B. Captain, Team B has already boarded a helicopter and is rushing to the scene. They will arrive in about 15 minutes. Additionally, we just received a top-secret intelligence report. These armed men are actually 2 waves of people. The first wave sneaked in 3 days ago, about 8 or 9 people. And their purpose is currently unclear. The 6 guys who crossed the border violently were only responsible for the pickup. Got it. After the call ended, Yuan Feng's expression darkened. He sensed that this matter was not as simple as it appeared on the surface. It seemed that something significant was hidden behind it. Otherwise, so many people wouldn't take such risks. At this moment, Yuan Feng suddenly had a bold hypothesis. No matter what the other party's intentions are, it is not an easy task for so many people to seek a safe evacuation. Qin Feng and the veteran named Zhao Pengfei might have been injured in battle and taken away as hostages, right? If that's the case, the situation becomes tricky. Many large-scale destructive weapons, including heavy machine guns and artillery, are currently unusable. Bang bang bang. Rat-a-tat-tat. Gunfire erupted from another mountain. Jelin Te breathed heavily, occasionally turning back to fire a couple of shots. Beside him, Shaka was limping, clutching his wound. With every step he took, the pain from his thigh wound made him grimace. Looking at Zhao Pengfei, who was slumped over Jelin Te's shoulder and already unconscious, Shaka couldn't help but curse. Damn it. Didn't you see that I got shot? Why aren't you carrying me away instead of this half-dead guy? Just shoot him and we can run faster. Jelin Te looked at him as if he were an idiot. You were the one who suggested taking hostages. After wasting so much time to finally get one. Now you don't want him? Their reinforcements were already on their way, and they needed to meet up with Locke and the others to evacuate together. As long as they had this guy with them, even if they were surrounded, the opposing forces would hesitate to use large-scale destructive weapons. Do you believe that if you weren't here, they would dare to use missiles on us? Shaka responded with an "oh," not sure if he understood. But he dragged his injured leg and looked at Jelin Te with a strange expression. Jelin Te, you're clearly a Westerner. How do you know so many idioms and vocabulary from that culture? Jelin Te smiled. Haven't you heard the saying? That place is a civilization disguised as a country. Although I've never been there, I really like their culture. Before he could finish his sentence, a sudden burst of gunfire rang out. Both instinctively bent down. Looking back at the figure desperately chasing them not far away, Jelin Te's face turned grim. They had to deal with this tale, otherwise, it would be hard to escape. You go ahead, Locke and the others should be arriving soon. I'll take care of him. Shaka didn't hesitate for a second. He didn't even wait to hear the rest of Jelin Te's words, and hurriedly limped away. Right now, he needed to quickly regroup with the first team. As long as they completed the rendezvous, not only would their safety be ensured, but they could also escape quickly. However, Jelen Te was very displeased with Shaka's actions. Although it was just a business relationship, couldn't he at least pretend a little? If we are to continue our cooperation in the future, we could still act like old friends. Forget it, there probably won't be any cooperation next time. Jelen Te used a fallen tree trunk as cover and casually tossed the unconscious Zhao Pengfei aside. He then set up his sniper rifle, aiming at the figure that had been chasing them all along. Click! Jelen Te pulled the bolt, first firing a test shot. In the moment Qin Feng heard the gunshot, he immediately ducked behind a tree for cover. Right now, he was only about 200 meters away from the sniper. However, he was pinned down by the bullets and couldn't even move away from the tree. At this moment, Qin Feng was burning with anxiety. He had to quickly rescue the person and get them to emergency aid. Otherwise, just the blood loss could be enough to lead to Zhao Pengfei's death. Qin Feng prepared to use the same trick again, holding the water bottle above his hat and quietly peeking out from behind the tree on the left. He was waiting for the moment when the hat would be shot off, planning to rush out and close the distance with the sniper. Jarrett, watching through the night vision goggles, saw the military cap peeking out and was filled with amusement and disdain. He thought this guy was insulting his intelligence. Only a fool like Shaka would fall for such a trick. Trying to pull a fast one under the nose of a qualified sniper was simply a fantasy. Damn it, how is this bastard not falling for it? Qin Feng clenched his fists. He didn't have time to waste. If he delayed any longer, the squad leader might really be done for. After much hesitation, Qin Feng decided to charge out. As long as he didn't get shot in the head or have his heart pierced, he should survive. With that thought, Qin Feng placed the water bottle in front of him and rushed out without hesitation. Seeing Qin Feng's desperate actions through the night vision goggles, Jarrett couldn't help but laugh. He lowered his gun slightly and aimed for Qin Feng's heart, ready to take him out with one shot. Goodbye, naive kid. Just as Jarrett was about to pull the trigger, a sharp object suddenly plunged into his left eye. The gun wobbled, causing the bullet to stray off course, grazing past Qin Feng's shoulder. Ah, my eye! Jarrett clutched his bleeding eye and collapsed to the ground, letting out a heart-wrenching scream. To Qin Feng's surprise, Zhao Pengfei, who should have been unconscious, managed to steady himself and shakily stood up. He slowly lifted a rock over his head and brought it down hard towards Jarrett's head. Chapter 112 more? Is this never-ending? Zhao Pengfei exerted all his strength to lift the stone. However, due to excessive blood loss, his body felt very light. Even the things in front of him were blurry. He didn't hesitate any longer and swung the stone down hard towards the figure in the middle. But Jarrett, having been a mercenary for so many years, reacted quickly. As he rolled to the side, he kicked Zhao Pengfei's calf. Zhao Pengfei's legs were already weak. And with that sudden kick, he immediately lost his balance and fell to the ground with a thud, nearly hitting his head on the stone. Damn it! Jarrett, furious, got up from the ground and pulled the branch out of his eye. Blood was gushing out while the pain made him scream in agony, stomping his feet and cursing. After a lifetime of being a hawk, he was now blinded? This guy had been pretending to be unconscious just to land a hit at a critical moment. Losing an eye could very well end his mercenary career. Who would hire a one-eyed man to be their enforcer? What a ridiculous thought. Jelen cursed the essence of his hometown. He raised the submachine gun in his arms, ready to finish off Zhao Pengfei. He couldn't afford to keep someone as venomous as this around. This time it was a branch in the eye. Next time it could be a knife to the throat. Therefore he had to die. Just as Jelen aimed his gun at Zhao Pengfei, ready to pull the trigger, a figure shot towards him like a cannonball, striking with lightning speed. The impact felt like being hit by a speeding dump truck. Jelen was thrown back 4 or 5 meters, crashing hard against a tree. The pain in his spine almost unbearable. On the other hand, Qin Feng was not in much better shape. His shoulder felt as if it was about to split open. What on earth had this guy eaten to be so tough? It felt like crashing into a concrete wall. But unlike many foolish characters in dramas who would rush to help their leader and ask if they were okay, Qin Feng chose to charge forward directly, ready to eliminate the threat first. Jelen, with his tough skin and muscles, was not seriously harmed despite the hit. Seeing Qin Feng rushing towards him, he knew he didn't have time to raise his gun again. So he decisively drew a Gurkha knife from his waist and swung it hard at the oncoming Qin Feng. In close combat, cold weapons were always more effective than guns, with greater lethality. If this hit, it could take Qin Feng's life. Seeing the blade coming down, Qin Feng was startled for a moment, but quickly formulated a counter-strategy. The Gurkha knife, also known as a kukri, was recognized worldwide as the most mechanically efficient curved knife. Holding it felt like wielding an axe, likely resulting in a powerful downward swing. Qin Feng could have chosen to evade, but he crouched down and pushed off the ground with his legs, launching himself at this guy like a cannonball, exposing his back in the process. Noticing Qin Feng's reckless move, Jelen's face twisted into a sinister grin. The knife sliced through the air, aimed viciously at Qin Feng's back. The gruesome image of cutting through flesh and bone did not occur. With a clang, the knife struck the metal body of the gun, numbing Jelen's hand. Indeed, at the last moment, Qin Feng had thrown the empty AK-47 behind him, blocking the deadly blow. However, part of the blade still grazed his flesh, staining his back with blood. Ignoring the pain, Qin Feng's eyes turned fierce, revealing the cold glint of a blade in his hand. He thrust a knife towards Jelin's heart, but it wouldn't penetrate. Damn, a bulletproof vest, and one with ceramic plates. The reason Qin Feng took the risk to take that hit was to create an opportunity for a fatal strike. After all, this guy is tall and strong. Qin Feng might not be able to take him on directly, and a sneak attack is the way to go. But that rascal doesn't follow the rules of combat. Can't you wear some kind of body armor, like Kevlar, that can be easily penetrated? Next time, you shouldn't cheat like this, according to the script. I should have taken you down in one strike. Bang! Qin Feng was kicked and flew backward. The pain from the kick brought tears to his eyes, and he nearly spat out blood. He curled up on the ground, failing twice to get back on his feet. Qin Feng regretted immensely why he hadn't gone for the throat earlier. However, at that moment, Jelin didn't move toward him. To him, Qin Feng was just a jumping clown who could only dodge and hide. The few moves just now posed no real threat to him at all. Instead, Jelin was more intent on eliminating the one who had blinded him in one eye, leaving him to be a one-eyed man in the future. He wanted to cut off Zhao Pengfei's head and take it back as a trophy. Soldiers of the Fiery Nation, it's time for you to go. Jelin dragged Zhao Pengfei aside, pressing his head against a rock. As Zhao Pengfei looked up at the glinting knife raised high above him, he closed his eyes in despair. His body was battered and weak, unable to muster any strength to escape. Whoosh! The cold blade descended toward Zhao Pengfei's neck. But in the next moment, Jelin felt a powerful gust of wind from his right. Before he could react, his right cheek collided with a metal water bottle. Bang! The massive impact crushed his cheek, shattering most of his teeth. Blood gushed from his mouth as he fell backward, the ground trembling beneath him. Almost as soon as his back hit the ground, a figure landed on top of him, driving a cold, piercing dagger deeply into his throat. Qin Feng pinned him down, twisting the blade violently. Blood sprayed from the wound, shooting up over a meter high like a fountain, splattering hot blood all over Qin Feng, who now looked incredibly terrifying. He resembled a demon emerging from a sea of corpses and blood, more like a vengeful spirit crawling out of hell. Only when Jelin stopped struggling and he saw him become a lifeless body did Qin Feng finally release his grip. He hurried over to Zhao Pengfei, helping him to a slightly concealed patch of grass nearby. Class leader, how are you? Zhao Pengfei, supported by Qin Feng, looked pale and drained of color. As weak as a paper figure. He didn't speak, but slowly lifted his shirt. Qin Feng was surprised to find that Zhao Pengfei had already applied hemostatic powder to his wound and wrapped it in bandages. It was thanks to this first aid measure that he had managed to hold on until now. You scared me. Qin Feng thought Zhao Pengfei had just experienced a moment of revival. He quickly grabbed the walkie-talkie, preparing to call for help. Suddenly, a series of footsteps echoed from the distant woods. Qin Feng thought rescue had arrived and eagerly peeked out. But soon, his face turned ashen and his mood plummeted. Not far away in the woods, 8 or 9 armed individuals, led by a certain figure, were rushing toward them quickly. Qin Feng was instantly stunned. Is this never-ending? Damn. Chapter 113. The situation turns around. Couldn't you have come a bit earlier? Squad leader, I'm afraid we can't escape this time, he said. The enemy was too numerous and scattered. Previously, Qin Feng had managed to dodge bullets thanks to the downpour and the cover of darkness. Now, the rain had stopped, and the day was gradually brightening. If Qin Feng carried Zhao Pengfei to escape, he would immediately become a live target. Dodging a couple of bullets was already pushing it. With so many guns, rushing out meant certain death. Hearing Qin Feng's words, Zhao Pengfei's pale face revealed a hint of bitter resignation. After all this time, he never expected they would still be unable to escape. Do you have any cigarettes? Zhao Pengfei's voice was as rough as sandpaper, making it painful to listen to. In such a hopeless situation, he felt somewhat relieved. He just wanted one last puff before he could depart in peace. I'm just a rookie, where would I get cigarettes? Isn't that against the rules? Qin Feng replied half-jokingly, which made Zhao Pengfei smirk slightly, revealing a hint of a smile. But his longing for a cigarette led him to express, I really wish I could have one last puff. Smoking is harmful to health. What's the point of health when you're about to die? A wave of drowsiness hit Zhao Pengfei, his eyelids drooping. Yet, he still forced himself to turn his head and squeezed out a weak voice between his teeth. Qin Feng, let us meet in the Martyrs' Cemetery. Sorry, squad leader. There are limited spots. You didn't make the cut this time. Qin Feng flashed him a cheerful smile and left him a walkie-talkie. Then he dashed out, grabbed a sniper rifle from the ground, and ran forward desperately. While running, he continuously pulled the trigger at the group of armed individuals to create a commotion. You bunch of scoundrels, I'm right here. If you have the guts, come and kill me. Come on, I can take you all on by myself. Qin Feng's reckless actions indeed caught the attention of that group. His blood-soaked appearance in the dawn-lit forest was a striking visual shock. like the red dot in the center of a target, exceptionally eye-catching, especially for the leader, who, upon seeing Qin Feng, immediately became enraged. It was as if a cat smelled fish or a shark sensed blood. Take him down, don't let him escape, kill him. The leader wasn't aware of what had transpired, but, upon seeing the distant corpse, he instinctively thought it was Qin Feng's doing. In his eyes, Zhao Pengfei was already a dying man, completely insignificant. That half-dead state might even lead him to die on the way, making him a burden. So, he didn't need to worry about him. Letting him fend for himself was sufficient. But this Qin Feng had repeatedly humiliated him. He had even taken 2 shots, turning him into a stray dog. This grudge had to be avenged. Otherwise, even if he goes back, Sha Ka will never swallow this anger. Bang, bang, bang. The gunshots and footsteps are gradually fading away. Zhao Pengfei, hidden in the grass by Qin Feng, has already burst into tears. His heart feels as if it is gripped by an invisible hand. He only helped Qin Feng block a bullet. But Qin Feng has repeatedly risked his life in return. Zhao Pengfei is in a terrible state. His eyelids feel as heavy as 1,000 pounds. He struggles to maintain his fading consciousness and presses down on the intercom. Dried lips seep a trickle of blood, and his breathing becomes increasingly labored. In the end, he can only squeeze out a few final words from his throat. Save him. Hurry and save Qin Feng. Zhao Pengfei? Hello, where are you? What's your location? How are you? What happened to Qin Feng? Where is he? Speak. Please say something. On the mountaintop, Gu Xiong is frantic, shouting into the intercom as if he were an ant on a hot pan. He is so anxious that he nearly kneels to the intercom in desperation. However, all he hears is a click, the sound of something falling. There is no further response. Bang, bang, bang. Qin Feng drags his injured body, leaning against a tree, stumbling through the forest. He has been shot in the calf and shoulder. Although the wounds are through and through, blood continues to pour out. He is in terrible condition, uncertain whether he can survive, but he doesn't care. As long as he can draw attention away from Zhao Pengfei. That's enough. He is more worried about the team leader's situation than his own. Significant blood loss and the low temperature have brought Zhao Pengfei to the brink of death. Has he managed to contact the rescue team? As the saying goes, concern leads to chaos. Qin Feng, not paying attention, trips over a bare tree root and falls to the ground. He tries to get up, but the bleeding knee and gunshot wounds force him back down. Damn it. Qin Feng can only crawl behind a tree, gasping for breath. The pursuers are getting closer, and their footsteps seem to echo in his ears. Qin Feng swallows the blood in his mouth, his heartbeat racing like a high-speed engine. Watching Qin Feng cornered and desperate, like a stray dog, Sha Ka feels a surge of delight, his face filled with a frenzied, triumphant smile. Boss, we need to leave quickly. Their pursuers have reached the mountaintop. Got it. We'll take care of this guy and leave immediately. Whoever can blow his head off will get a reward of 200,000. If you bring me his head, I'll give you 500,000. Hearing this, both his subordinates and the mercenaries' eyes light up, as if they've been injected with adrenaline. A generous reward brings out brave men. Whether it's 200,000 or 500,000, it's a significant fortune for them. The bold survive, while the timid starve, even if reinforcements arrive from the neighboring country. So what? They have faced such life-or-death situations before. At worst, they just need to kill and retreat quickly. A mercenary drew his knife, his eyes glinting with greed, and charged ahead with great speed. He intended to take the head of Qin Feng back, using the reward to hire a few models and indulge in gambling. Qin Feng caught glimpses of greedy figures rushing toward him, but he remained still, unable to move. The excruciating pain from his wounds left him unable to even stand, let alone escape. Forget it, let it all end. Leaning against a tree, Qin Feng closed his eyes. At that moment, he wished he could smoke a cigarette. The thought of nicotine's aroma filling his nostrils and spreading through his lungs was enticing. Just then, a sudden gunshot rang out. The mercenary at the front seemed to hit an invisible wall, his head snapping back as he fell to the ground. Qin Feng's eyes shot open. A rocket flew past him with a whoosh. A loud explosion followed, wreaking havoc in the nearby woods. Watching heavily armed figures sweep by with murderous intent filled Qin Feng with dread. He recognized their insignia, the Thunder Leopard Special Forces. The leader gave Qin Feng a thumbs up as he passed by, casually tossing something over. Qin Feng raised his hand to catch it and found it was a big white rabbit milk candy. What is this, a treat for kids? Without thinking, he popped the candy into his mouth. The sweetness released in his mouth instantly revitalized him. Soon after, Qin Feng lay back on the ground in a relieved spread-eagle position, quietly gazing at the sky. He was utterly exhausted, feeling as if his bones were about to fall apart. No, to be precise, they already had. What happened next was no longer his concern. He would leave it to the professionals. The sound of helicopter rotors filled the air as a Z-10 appeared in his line of sight, beginning to unleash firepower on the ground. The situation on the scene began to turn decisively. Under the overwhelming firepower, The armed group stood no chance, suffering heavy casualties. Yet, Qin Feng couldn't help but mutter to himself, "Damn it, couldn't you have come sooner? It's not like we're filming a cop and robber movie. Why did you have to wait until the last moment to show up?" Chapter 114, The Farmer and the Snake. Mr. Donghua and the Wolf. Have you seen my 2 soldiers? No, I haven't. Have you seen my men? No. I have 2 soldiers missing, one a third-term sergeant, and the other a new recruit. On the way down the mountain, Gu Ziyong seemed to have lost his mind, asking everyone he encountered, "Have you seen Zhao Pengfei? Have you seen Qin Feng?" But without exception, no one had seen them. They were all armed police sent to search for and eliminate the armed group. They had heard that the fighting above had ended and were ordered to descend the mountain first. Thus, they were completely unaware of the battle happening on the other ridge. On the mountain path, Gu Ziyong continued his frantic search, firmly believing he would eventually learn the whereabouts of the 2. People must be seen when alive, and no. They are both blessed and destined to live. They cannot be dead. But just at that moment, 2 medical staff members came down the mountain, carrying a stretcher. Looking at the white cloth covering the stretcher, Gu Ziyong's heart nearly stopped. He moved forward like a puppet, step by step, to stop them. Nervously, he reached out and slowly lifted the cloth. In that instant, it felt like his heart was about to leap out of his throat. However, the faces he was familiar with were not among those revealed. Instead, it was the body of an armed individual with a severely deformed head. At that moment, Gu Ziyong felt a weight lift from his heart, but the unsettling feeling once stirred could not be stopped. He began to walk quickly back up. Whenever he saw someone carrying a stretcher, he rushed over to check. The entire process felt like riding a roller coaster, each time a strong agony of torment. He was conflicted, hoping to find the 2 people, but also wishing that the body under the white cloth was not either of them. With such mixed emotions, Gu Ziyong opened several blind boxes in succession, and without exception, they were all bodies of armed individuals. Some had knives stabbed into their chests, some had deformed heads, and others were battered to a pulp. Among them, the most gruesome death was that of a Western person. The phrases unrecognizable and horrific were both compliments for this individual. Ugh. Gu Ziyong, with bloodshot eyes, leaned against a large rock and began to gag violently. Just moments ago, he had carelessly lifted a plastic bucket held by a forensic expert. Then, he began to feel unwell. Seeing dead people was one thing. Witnessing dismembered bodies was another. At that moment, a delicate hand holding a bottle of water appeared in front of Gu Ziyong. He looked up to see Zhu Huihui. "Thank you," Gu Ziyong said, and unscrewed the cap, taking a big gulp. Seeing his state, Zhu Huihui couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. "Gu Ziyong, please don't try to persuade me. I absolutely want to leave until I find them. No, I want to tell you. I know what you're going to say. They'll be fine, and I should just wait patiently for news." Gu Ziyong shook his head vigorously, the water bottle in his hand crumpling under his grip. "You should go back. This is my own business. I'm their squad leader. And I absolutely want to leave until I find them." Zhu Huihui wanted to call out to him, but Gu Ziyong had already dashed off. He spotted a stretcher that looked no different from the previous ones. The only difference was the bloodied arm that had fallen from it. The familiar army camouflage deeply pierced Gu Ziyong's eyes. He covered his mouth, his legs gave way, and he dropped to his knees. He shook his head in disbelief. But tears flowed uncontrollably down his face. At around 6 in the morning, at the headquarters of the 402nd Regiment, Regiment Commander Chiu Guohai walked into his office. He had barely sat down when there was a hurried knock at the door. "Come in. Old Chiu. Something has happened. Something big." Seeing Ji Mingyuan rush in anxiously, Chiu Guohai looked puzzled. What could be such a big deal? Was there a tsunami that swept away those who were living well? Or did those international peacekeepers go off somewhere to seize oil and create chaos again? Ji Mingyuan had no time for jokes. The new recruits. Something happened with the new recruits. Chiu Guohai was even more confused. Aren't the new recruits conducting field training? What could possibly go wrong? Shouldn't they be on their way back by now? It happened on the way back. Ji Mingyuan quickly recounted the events. After hearing this, Chiu Guohai jumped up as if he had been pricked by a thorn. "You're telling me this now? It's already dawn. I just got the news myself and rushed to inform you." Ji Mingyuan replied. "Damn it." Chiu Guohai slammed the table, his face filled with anger. "Where's Gu Ziyong? Why didn't he report this to me immediately? I'll have his skin if he doesn't." Ji Mingyuan waved his hand with a bitter smile. "All right, don't blame him. He was even more anxious than you. It was chaotic last night, with thunder and rain. Who could pay attention? Besides," he paused, a hint of embarrassment on his face. "The 6th Company has already gone out independently. Even if Gu Ziyong wanted to report, it should be to the commander, not us." Chiu Guohai was stunned. "Damn it. I almost forgot about that." But then he anxiously asked, "What about the personnel on site? The new recruits weren't hurt, were they?" Ji Mingyuan quickly shared what he knew. "Currently, except for the 4th squad, the other squads are fine. However what?" Chiu Guohai slammed the table, nearly bursting with urgency. He felt like shaking Ji Mingyuan to get the rest of the sentence out. Why did these civilian staff always have such bad habits of leaving things unsaid? Ji Mingyuan. You usually like to play with words, but at a time like this, just say what you have to say. Ji Mingyuan was splashed with saliva from Qiu Guohai's outburst. He hurriedly poured out the rest. A few from the 4th squad have injuries and fractures, but they are all receiving treatment at the hospital and are currently not in critical condition. However, from what I've learned, squad leader Zhao Pengfei and Qin Feng stayed behind on the mountain to cover the retreat of the new recruits, and their situation is currently unclear. I tried to contact the armed police on site, but they haven't found any information about Qin Feng and Zhao Pengfei. What does that mean? Qiu Guohai asked. Ji Mingyuan habitually paused again, his expression grim as he said, I'm afraid the situation is dire. Qiu Guohai slumped back into his chair, looking as if his spirit had left his body. Ji Mingyuan sighed. It said that Qin Feng and Zhao Pengfei chose to stay behind to attract the enemy's attention while covering the retreat of the new recruits and college students. Now, the fighting over there has ended, and they have begun to clean up the battlefield, but there is still no news of the two men. So I think it's highly likely that. Before he could finish speaking, Qiu Guohai quickly stood up, grabbed his hat, and rushed out. Where are you going? To the scene. Qiu Guohai shouted back without looking. Live people need to be seen. Dead people need to be identified. Even if something really happened, as the team leader, I must send them off for the last time. Meanwhile, in a hospital room in the city center, Li Jiaxing had his head wrapped in bandages, looking like someone from a distant land. Chen Sanchi had his left hand in a cast and 2 pieces of gauze on his head. Qi Ming was slightly better off, but his shoulder and waist were also wrapped in thick bandages. They had all been injured while descending in the dark. After all, in that kind of environment, not dying from a fall was already a stroke of luck. At the moment, a group of people gathered together, resembling mummies having a meeting. Do you think the squad leader and Qin Feng will be okay? I think it's hard to say. Just then, one soldier spoke up and was kicked by the others. If you can't say anything useful, then don't speak out of turn. Shut up. They will definitely be fine. Yes, the squad leader has such high combat power, and Brother Feng is so smart. Together, they are a perfect combination. I also think they might have already safely descended the mountain, eating bread and drinking milk. Everyone seemed to be encouraging each other, constantly saying uplifting words. But in reality, each person was deeply worried. If they hadn't joined the army, they might not have had much concept of armed groups. They could even think that all soldiers are at the level of elite warriors. Just one loud declaration of being a soldier would be enough to scare away hundreds of thousands of enemies. But the reality is far from that. One must not be misled by films and television. Additionally, if an ordinary person encounters someone with a gun while unarmed, it is basically a dead end. To put it simply, even a 6 or 7-year-old child can easily kill a group of adults if given a gun. Just imagine what a group of professionally trained adults with guns could do. If it weren't for the heavy rain, the darkness, and the cover of dense forest. If it weren't for Zhao Pengfei and Qin Feng diverting the enemy twice. Every single person here would already be dead by now. The room fell silent. With no one speaking, the atmosphere heavy and gloomy. Everyone silently prayed in their hearts for the squad leader and Qin Feng not to be in trouble. Just then, a commotion suddenly erupted in the corridor. Damn it, why did he hit me? What is so great about being a soldier? Look at my face. Look at how swollen it is. I've never even been hit by my mom growing up. I'm going to report this. I'm going to find a lawyer. I want them all to go to jail. In the hospital room, the injured new soldier with bandages on his body had a pale face. Qi Ming clenched his fists, making cracking sounds, his expression more unpleasant than ever. It was only at this moment that they realized. The farmer and the snake. Mr. Dong Guo and the wolf in elementary school textbooks have never been fables. Chapter 115. Why do you think you are the matchmaker? Qin Feng, you damn bastard. If you're going to sleep, then sleep. Why are you covering your head with a white cloth? And you let your hands hang down. I thought you were dead. At the foot of the mountain, beside an ambulance, Gu Xiong was shouting at Qin Feng, who was lying on a stretcher. Earlier, he had seen Qin Feng being carried down the mountain covered with a white cloth. His body was covered in blood, and he had a serene expression. Gu Xiong really thought he had heroically sacrificed himself. He cried all the way down the mountain, his eyes swollen from tears. Just before Qin Feng was loaded into the ambulance, the bastard actually yawned and sat up. It nearly scared Gu Xiong to death. He thought it was a resurrection. When he asked, he found out that this guy was just too tired. Plus, being carried on the way was so comfortable that he fell asleep. Looking at Gu Xiong's swollen eyes, Qin Feng awkwardly scratched his nose, not knowing how to comfort him. It was a bit cold on the mountain, so I asked them for something to cover up with. Covering my face was because the sunlight was a bit blinding, affecting my sleep quality. You fool, you big fool. Gu Xiong was so angry he jumped around like he was on fire. Who sleeps under a white cloth like that? Don't you think it's a bad omen? Qin Feng hesitated for a moment and said, I want to cover up next time. Next time? You think you can come a few more times? Gu Xiong started a tirade, making Qin Feng's ears feel like they were developing calluses. By the way, Where's your class monitor, Zhao Pengfei? Aren't you with him? How is he? Don't worry, he is fine. Before Qin Feng could speak, a woman's voice came from behind. Gu Zhiyong turned around, surprised to see Zhu Huihui standing behind him. Where is he? He was taken away by our helicopter 40 minutes ago and sent to a nearby military hospital for emergency treatment. Just received news that he is no longer in critical condition. Gu Zhiyong was instantly overjoyed. It's good as long as he is okay. But in the next second, he froze, tilting his head to look at Zhu Huihui. Wait, you knew they were okay this morning? Yes, Zhu Huihui nodded. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to tell you, but you didn't give me a chance. You were too busy lifting the white cloth looking for him. When she said this, there was a hint of resentment in her eyes. She realized that Gu Zhiyong had really changed. 2 months ago, he was constantly sending good morning and good night messages, caring for her in various ways. But ever since he came to get the materials that day, he had completely changed. Not only did he stop caring about her, but he also ignored her messages. Nowadays, even when she took the initiative to talk to him, he completely tuned her out. If only Gu Zhiyong had the patience to let her finish her sentences, he wouldn't have walked down the mountain crying like it was a funeral. Moreover, he cried at the wrong grave. Gu Zhiyong's old face instantly turned bright red. He was extremely anxious at that time and had no time to listen to Zhu Huihui. Compared to women, he cared more about the safety of his comrades. Come on, lend a hand, said a medical staff member nearby. Gu Zhiyong quickly helped lift the stretcher onto the ambulance. Although Qin Feng was not in life-threatening danger, he had been shot. So it was crucial to handle the situation quickly. With a bang, the door closed. Gu Zhiyong prepared to go to the hospital with Qin Feng, wanting to see the bullet removed. Additionally, the others from the 4th squad were also receiving treatment at the hospital, and he needed to check on them. It's worth mentioning that the hospital where Zhao Pengfei was treated was not the same as the one they were heading to now. Although both were top-tier hospitals, the military hospital had superior capabilities in emergency care compared to others. Once they passed the critical period, they would still be transferred here for recovery. As the door closed, the ambulance sped away with its siren wailing. Zhu Huihui stomped her feet in frustration, feeling as if she were invisible, unable to find any sense of presence. You just leave without even saying goodbye? Do you not consider me an old classmate at all? What old classmate? Zhu Huihui turned her head and found Yuan Feng standing right next to her. She quickly shook her head in embarrassment. Nothing. Yuan Feng looked at the departing ambulance and pulled a big white rabbit candy from his pocket, waving it at her. Zhu Huihui was taken aback and politely declined. She knew Yuan Feng had a habit of carrying candy, but she was also aware that the squad leader's candies were not that simple. Last time, when he offered her a sour plum candy, it was to get her to help print some documents for Qin Feng and deliver them to his desk the next day. This piece of candy was definitely purposeful, so it was better to be cautious. Yuan Feng opened the wrapper, popped the milk candy into his mouth, and started chewing while asking, "Do you know the new recruit named Qin Feng? I've seen him, but we're not very familiar. Where did you see him? Last time, he came with his squad leader Gu Zhiyong to collect some materials." "Oh, I see." Noticing Yuan Feng's thoughtful expression, Zhu Huihui awkwardly asked, "Squad leader, do you have any instructions? I still have some things to organize, but I can leave them there. It's not urgent to go back right now since we're cleaning up the battlefield." Yuan Feng smiled and asked, "Let me ask you something. Do you know Gu Zhiyong?" Zhu Huihui candidly replied, "Yes, he and I are high school classmates and also attended military school together, but we were in different majors. So, what do you think of him? He's pretty good and quite warm-hearted. Are you thinking of developing something more with him?" "Huh? What?" Zhu Huihui was caught off guard by the question. She quickly shook her head to deny it and clarified that they were just ordinary friends, nothing more. Yuan Feng laughed heartily, not feeling any awkwardness at all. Marriage is a significant milestone for both men and women, and being old classmates, they know each other well. "I actually think you might want to consider this." Zhu Huihui was embarrassed and didn't know how to respond. He wondered how the squad leader had ended up playing matchmaker today. Yuan Feng took off his tactical helmet and wiped the sweat from his head, not saying much more. But it seemed that Zhu Huihui had already guessed his intention. This was about a mutually beneficial exchange. As for what to exchange for what, did it need to be stated? Yuan Feng didn't continue the topic but turned to look at a few armed survivors who had been forcibly taken away in the vehicle. "Go check on them and see where these guys come from. Squad leader, do you suspect their identities are not simple?" "It's not a suspicion, it's a certainty," Yuan Feng said coldly. "It's been a long time since I've encountered someone so eager to seek death. They're taking such a big risk, so their underlying interests must be enormous." Zhu Huihui nodded vigorously. "I'll start the investigation immediately after we return." Chapter 116. Some are human, some are not. Good. Very good, as long as everything is fine. In the office of the headquarters, Commander Lu Chong smiled broadly after listening to Gu Zhiyong's report. Although the soldier named Zhao Pengfei was still in a coma, he had already escaped life-threatening danger. Currently, they were in the observation phase, and if there were no issues, he could be transferred to another hospital for further recovery. The new recruits in the 4th squad had all completed their treatments and were recovering quite well, especially Qin Feng, who was as strong as a young calf. He had been shot twice and lost a lot of blood, but his recovery speed was several times faster than the others. As the popular saying goes online, he was like a natural soldier. No matter what, injuries take a long time to heal. In terms of subsequent rehabilitation and nutrition, we absolutely cannot slack off. The return to duty can be postponed, and the training assessment can be delayed for a few days. That's not an issue. But the soldiers' health must be prioritized. Their bodies are the foundation of combat. If anything goes wrong, I'll hold you responsible. Don't worry, Commander. Gu Xiong quickly patted his chest in assurance. I've instructed the hospital to use the best medicine, and the meals are up to the standards for veteran officers. The meal standards these days are almost on par with military dogs, ensuring these recruits are well-fed and healthier than before they got injured. Lu Chong nodded with a smile. All right, the commander is waiting for my report. I'll make sure to commend everyone later, especially those 2 kids, Qin Feng and Zhao Pengfei. Their blood wasn't shed in vain. Gu Xiong's eyes lit up with excitement. He made this call partly to inquire about the merits. He didn't expect the commander to bring it up, indicating he was indeed ready to seek recognition from the higher-ups. The rewards given by the commander and the ones given by the higher command carry completely different meanings. However, since the soldiers were injured and bled, these rewards were indeed well-deserved. Commander, I have one more thing I'd like to report. Hearing the hesitant tone from the other end, Lu Chong couldn't help but feel curious. After listening to Gu Xiong's report, he chuckled dismissively. What is the big deal? It turns out to be such a trivial matter. Commander, don't you blame them? There's a reason for everything. Why blame them? Given the situation at the time, if we hadn't acted to control the crowd, who knows how chaotic it would have become. Lu Chong waved his hand nonchalantly. Besides, if we really let those college students leave as they wished, it would have made the rescue efforts much more difficult. I believe these students are educated and sensible. At most, they might complain a little, but they wouldn't really waste time chasing after you for responsibility. With the commander backing him up, Gu Xiong immediately relaxed and smiled, feeling much more at ease. Thank you, Commander. All right, enough talk. The military leader is still waiting for me. Once the call ended, the anxiety that Gu Xiong had been holding on to finally eased. Although everything had been calm these days without any issues, he still felt uneasy, worrying that those students might cause trouble and affect the evaluation of merits and awards. But since the commander reassured him, he could finally put his mind at rest. Gu Xiong cheerfully returned to the ward through the corridor. However, as soon as he entered, he sensed that the atmosphere was off. Li Jiaxing, Qi Meng, and Chen Sanqi all wore grim expressions, as if someone owed them millions. What is going on? Just a moment ago, everyone was laughing and chatting. How did it turn into this while I was on the phone? I was worried you would be bored in the hospital, so I brought you your phones. You don't have to train every day, and you're being well taken care of. What is there to be unhappy about? The group glanced at him, but remained silent. Gu Xiong paused, then cheerfully pointed at them. I see, you're worried about the evaluation of merits and awards, right? Don't worry, I just spoke with the commander. He asked going to the military leader to help you with your commendation. But the response was still silence. Instead of joy, they looked like a bunch of kids who had done something wrong. Gu Xiong sensed something was wrong and immediately frowned. You guys, haven't caused any trouble again, have you? Company commander, you should take a look at this first. Qin Feng, with his arm in a cast, lay in the hospital bed and handed him his phone. Gu Xiong took it with suspicion, glanced at the expressions of those around him, and then directed his gaze at the phone screen. It was a post on Weibo from someone named Pearl Tear Little Fairy. From the name, it sounded like a girl. But as he read on, Gu Xiong's brows furrowed deeper. The more he read, the worse his expression became, and the fire in his eyes grew stronger. What did it mean to go on a normal outing and camping with classmates only to be violently driven away, refusing to help retrieve a lost phone and disregarding the safety of the citizens' lives and property, deliberately leading students into dangerous areas, resulting in an 18-year-old girl getting injured and leaving a permanent scar on her leg? Cursing, violence, and rudeness. Were they bandits or robbers? He was unjustly slapped by a student council officer who raised reasonable doubts. Looking at the content of the post, Gu Xiong's fists were clenching tightly, and he was furious. Spreading rumors and slandering. This is clearly absurd. Who posted this? Who are they to distort the truth and speak recklessly? Qin Feng took back his phone and sighed, saying, Squad leader, we discussed it just now. We don't want the rewards anymore. We just hope not to be punished. Qi Meng decisively stepped forward. Squad leader, I caused this. I will apologize to them. If necessary, I can leave. I will not cause trouble for the unit. The squad leader nodded. I am also responsible for this matter. Li Jiaxing quickly added, when I urged them to hurry down the mountain. My voice was a bit loud and my tone a bit rough. If anyone should be punished, it should be me. Me too, Chen Sanqi chimed in. When I was carrying that woman down the mountain, the ground was too slippery, and I fell several times, causing her to get hurt. It's my fault. If anyone should be punished, it should be me. In the hospital room, the new recruits were scrambling to take responsibility. Seeing this group of boys, bandaged and in casts, eager to accept blame, made Gu Xiong's heart ache. He wanted to comfort them, but didn't know how to begin. If this matter hadn't been exposed, everything would have been fine. But now that it had come to light, the situation was serious. The military is known for its strict discipline. A soldier's duty is to ensure the safety of civilians. Although there were reasons for what happened, if it escalated, everyone's rewards might truly be lost. Gu Xiong took a deep breath and spoke to comfort them. All right, it's just a post criticizing us. True merit can withstand scrutiny. We can handle doubts and any examination. Until there's a conclusion, no one should speak negatively. The rewards you deserve will definitely be fought for, regardless of the outcome. The unit will not let you suffer in vain. The recruits fell silent. They no longer cared about the rewards. What they were most worried about now was Qin Feng and Qi Meng. After all, the post was directly aimed at them. Qin Feng might be slightly better off, but Qi Meng was in more trouble. Many had seen how hard that slap was. If the other party decided to pursue this, Qi Meng might not only lose his position as a soldier, but also have this incident recorded in his file, affecting him for a lifetime. The gloomy atmosphere in the hospital room spread, and anger ignited within Qin Feng. Some people are human, while others are not. They say one should repay a life-saving favor with gratitude, but unexpectedly, it turned into a reversal of blame. The farmer and the snake, Mr. Donghua and the wolf. These aren't just fables. They are prophetic stories. This also reminded Qin Feng of the widely discussed case of helping an elderly person. If an elderly person falls by the roadside, would you help them? Not helping would lead to a moral condemnation. Helping, on the other hand, could lead to being falsely accused and losing everything. You would also have to spend a lot of time and effort proving your innocence and clearing your name. Furthermore, the process might involve being questioned by someone. If you didn't cause the accident, why did you help? Unfortunately, there are many similar news stories. For example, a drowning person is rescued and then claims to have been taken advantage of while in the water, demanding financial compensation. Indeed, in a vast world, there are all sorts of people. Qin Feng exhaled deeply and unusually gave a thumbs up to this post. If the person could delete the post within a day, Qin Feng could pretend nothing happened. After all, being magnanimous allows for some leeway. But if by evening the post was still up, then one could not blame him for being unkind. After all, the opportunity had been given. If one remains obstinate, then they must face the consequences. Chapter 117. Never let the soldiers feel cold. Report to the commander. This is Lu Chong from the 33rd Division. Lu Chong stood in the commander's office, reporting the situation. He also detailed the heroic deeds of Zhao Pengfei and Qin Feng in the accompanying written document. Although they were inadvertently involved in this action, their outstanding performance was commendable. Naturally, Lu Chong needed to advocate for the honor of his division. Have you finished? Wei Shan had tapped his fingers on the desk. Looking at him with a blank expression, Lu Chong felt a sudden unease but still asked, Commander, have you considered rewards for those involved in the mission? Let us not talk about rewards for now. Take a look at this. Wei Shanhe turned the laptop on the desk towards him. Lu Chong's expression froze as he saw the content on the screen. Wei Shanhe turned the laptop back, leaned back in his chair, and spoke coldly. Besides this, someone has sent an anonymous letter reporting us, demanding that we severely punish those who harm the group, giving society and the public an explanation. Lu Chong's complexion turned pale. Sir, the term harmful elements is too harsh. I've already understood the facts. In that situation, their actions were purely to protect everyone's safety. If the army is to punish them for this, then you might as well punish me first. It was my command that led to this. Wei Shanhe slammed his hand on the table and stood up. Lu Chong, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to argue with me or prove your bravery in caring for your soldiers? Report, sir, I'm not. Lu Chong stood tall, his voice loud. Wei Shanhe nearly hurt his hand from the force. Not what? Why are you shouting so loudly? You're standing right in front of me. I'm not deaf. Do you think I'm going after those new recruits? Do you think I want to make a big deal out of this? Now that there are doubts raised, the army must find a way to address them. We are the people's army and have strict discipline. He stood in front of Lu Chong. His tone as serious as it could be. During the rescue operation, those new recruits indeed made some mistakes and acted recklessly. That's a fact. As you mentioned, they are new recruits. Lu Chong was adamant and showed no signs of backing down. What kind of awareness can you expect from a recruit who has only been in service for a little over 2 months? Moreover, under such circumstances, even if I were to rescue people, if I encountered these ungrateful individuals, I would definitely be harsher than them. In the office, the atmosphere was tense. The two were arguing fiercely, and neither could convince the other. In the end, Wei Shanhe helplessly pointed at him and said, Lu Chong, after all these years, when are you going to change that stubborn temper of yours? Back when we were fighting together, you were like this, and now so many years have passed. And you're still the same. If you could just be a bit more flexible and assess the situation better. The position of brigade commander would have been yours long ago. Do you know what it means to prioritize the bigger picture and consider things from a collective perspective? Lu Cheng shrugged it off. Old Wei, don't waste your breath on me. All I know is that my soldiers' blood cannot be shed in vain, and their injuries cannot be for nothing. Clearly, they are the heroes who rescued people, yet now they are being wrongfully accused because of a group of ungrateful students. If I don't take care of this, it doesn't matter if I'm made a commander, I wouldn't be happy about it. He slammed his legs together and puffed out his chest. Sir, if someone has to step up and apologize, if someone has to take the blame, let it be me. I never planned to climb higher anyway. I can retire 2 years early and go home to tend to my flowers and grass. But I absolutely cannot let these injured soldiers feel disheartened.